Time she finishes and begins the skewering, Vesper's fire is burning nicely. Smoke-capped flames crackle, chemical-tinted. Together they lift the rat and suspend it over the fire. A metal bar protrudes from its mouth and rear, each end supported by a pile of rocks. Once in place, the bar begins to bend in the middle, lowering the rat's belly to kiss the fire pit. The kid puts his back to the spectacle, happy to take the warmth, but more interested in stringy weeds sprouting about the rubble. While Vesper feeds some old netting to the fire, Duet slips a pink tablet into her mouth. The girl shows her palms to the flames. "That's better." Duet grunts agreement. Vesper looks at the rat's horns curving towards the floor, chews on her lip. "Are you sure we can eat it?" "Yes." "That's good." A few seconds pass. "You're not worried about taint?" "No. I'm hoping that the 7 will protect us." Vesper glances at the sleeping sword. "Oh. And if they don't, it isn't going to be a problem for long. Not for me, anyway." "No. And anyway, I didn't go through all of this not to eat." Meat slowly reddens. Fat drips down, sizzling. Mouths water. Turning the rat is stressful. Its weight is uneven, making the bar flex, dangerous and hot, scorching fingers despite the rags wrapped protectively around them. When it is done, 2 smiles shine, fierce in the firelight, each reflecting the other's glory. They wait again, stomachs growling, impatient. The kid turns around on the spot once, then twice, then sits. Within minutes, he is asleep. Vesper chews her lip. "Can I ask you something?" "All right." "When did you know you were going to be a harmonized?" "Why do you ask?" "Well, you're not that much older than me." Duet snorts, loud, but Vesper carries on. "You're not that much older than me, maybe 10 or 15 years at most, and you have your role in the Winged Eye. I mean, you know what you're supposed to be. There must have been a lot to learn. Did you start when you were my age, or earlier?" Light plays on Duet's face, highlighting its oddities. "I was young when I knew. There were trials and tests that seemed to take forever. All children in the Shining City take them, but I had extra ones for compatibility. The better I did, the more I got pushed." "How old were you?" "They started when I was still in the tube, but the first ones I remember happened when I was 3. By then, I already knew it was a possibility." "When I was 3, I didn't know anything. What did you have to do?" She frowns. "What does it matter? You're not going to become a harmonized." "I know that. I'm curious, that's all." "It's not natural." "You don't have to tell me if you don't want to." "It's not that." She pokes at the fire with a headless spoon. "I'm not like you. Talking doesn't come easily to me, and for most of my life I haven't needed to talk." Vesper takes her time, approaching the conversation as she would a scared animal. "The other you, what was she like?" Duet doesn't answer at first, and both take a moment to breathe in the smell of cooking meat. "I don't know. She was me, and I was her. So I'd have to say she was like me." "You were exactly the same?" "No. I used to think we were." She shakes her head, her tone suddenly bitter. "I thought our alignment was perfect. In battle, We moved as one, like extensions of each other. I always knew where she was going to be, and she knew the same about me. But we weren't exactly the same. She was the primo, and I was the secondo. Maybe it's the same with all harmonized, but... Vesper doesn't interrupt, letting the crackling of the flames fill the gaps. There were times when it felt like she was keeping something back, and sometimes I'd worry it was my fault. What if I wasn't good enough for her to share that last part of herself? What if I was holding us back? I'm sure it wasn't like that. Then why did she drop me for a fucking infernal? Duet covers her face. Maybe she messed up. Maybe you were the stronger one. No, I'm not. You didn't know her. She was perfect. It's true. I didn't know her. But she didn't save me from the first. You did. Duet keeps her face hidden. I thought about it. The first's offer. I didn't believe in you. I thought we were going to die. I was tempted. You didn't sound tempted, because it was an infernal. I thought I was loyal. I thought we would never... She tails off, hands pressing roughly against her mouth. Vesper sighs. It's okay. I don't blame you. The truth is, I don't believe in me either. Since I picked up the sword, I've been terrified of getting things wrong. My uncle says that when you don't know what to do, then it helps to pretend that you're someone who does. A little pride tugs at her lips. I pretend to be my father because he was a knight. He always knew what to do. The thing is, I'm not very good at it. I never knew my father or my mother. They were just codes on my record. Do you know anything about them? No. The harmonium forge made me, and the winged eye raised me. Gently, Vesper takes her hands, rests them in her lap. For what it's worth, I like you better now the other you isn't here. She looks up, disbelieving. But I'm horrible to you. Only sometimes. She punches Vesper on the arm. I think I'm starting to like you, too. I thought so. Duet punches her again, a little harder this time. Ow! What was that for? It's not easy for me, you know. I'm not like you. Okay. Vesper? Yes? I don't want to die. She squeezes Duet's hands. No. Abruptly, the harmonized stands up. I don't want to talk anymore. Let's eat. 1,113 years ago. The island is shy, only visible from the shore on a clear day. There has not been a clear day for 3 centuries now. Mankind makes his own clouds that hang low and heavy, squatting just above the waves, hissing out from rows and rows of metal pipes that sprout like grey grass. Undersea tubes connect the island to the mainland. There are 3 in total, each divided into 2 chambers, allowing traffic to flow back and forth. One carries people, another materials. The third is reserved for important items, living or otherwise. An angry sky flings rain and lightning around the island. Masassi glides through it all, fearless. For her, the clouds are easy to read, their bunchings and rollings giving ample warning as to where the next strike will be. She makes towards the buildings clustered on the island's crown. 6 spires carved along the lines of the natural rock, finished with iron and gold. They are well weathered, hard lines smoothed into something more appealing. Between them is a disk, big enough to land a carrier mech. Scorch marks mar its surface, testament to the long relationship between land and storm. She tips her glider towards it, but the winds are strong, shaking the wings on her back. 3 times they grab her as she tries to land, spinning her towards the heavens, but she comes back for a 4th time, ready even for a 5th or a 50th, and the elements part for her, overcome. Jump boots absorb the shock of landing, slipping on wet stone. She leans forward, surfing the momentum, tiny waves spraying up either side of her feet. Opposite, an oval door groans open. In its light, a man stands, one hand raised against the rain. His eyes widen as he sees the apparition emerging from the darkness. "Ah!" he cries, hopping backwards as she hops inside, wings folding at her back. They move like dancers, hurried steps matched, legs moving together until his back meets a wall and Masasi's palms slap against it, framing his terrified face. "Ah!" he says again. Her eyes narrow in contempt. "You are not one of the masters." "That's right, I'm not. I just manage the sanitation units. Please, don't hurt me." "Take me to the masters." He complies. She does not even need to compel him. As they weave their way deeper into the complex, her small hopes waver. Perhaps these will be just like the others. Perhaps she is alone in all the world, a freak, a queen amid the worms. She is led to a laboratory where brains float in tubes, arranged by size and then by normality. Electrical pulses wash over them, regular, matched by soft beeps that issue from a monitor. Light from the screen illuminates a man's face. To Masasi, he looks old and unimpressive. She pushes her guide out of the way. "You are a master of thought." The man looks up, blinking surprise. What? Who are you?" Jump boots activate on minimum power, sailing her across the room. "You are a master of thought." He straightens, chin jutting forward. "I am a neuromaster, yes." "Show me." Wrinkles line up on his brow. "What?" "Show me your power." "Look, I don't know who you are or how you got in here, but it would please me greatly if you used the same means to leave." His attention returns to the monitor. "And close the door on your way out." Masasi raises her silver arm level with the man's head. White light flashes as the iris in her palm spirals open. "Show me, or I will make you show me." He looks up, more irritated than afraid. "Very well. My primary research is around replacing damaged sections of the brain, specifically on the communication between the original and synthetic areas. As with many of my colleagues, I have of course had to bend my work towards other, more immediate applications." A hatch slides open in a nearby wall, and 2 spheres roll from it. Each is formed of multiple metal bands scored with lines that hint towards hidden compartments. They come to a stop by the man's feet, flanking him. Plates flip down, securing them in place, while quivering forks extend from their middle sections, spitting sparks. "Is this what you had in mind?" the Neuromaster asks. "I thought as much. You look the type that likes things simple. So let me put it in simple terms. My chip connects me to these drones. With a thought, I can manipulate them as easily as I can my own body. If I wish, I can turn them on or off, command them to move, or even to kill. So if you know what's good for you, you'll lower your hand and leave me in peace. No. Slowly he shakes his head. You are a strange and savage thing. You really wish to die. The light in her palm begins to brighten. So be it. The drones tilt, raising their weapons towards Masasi, then past her, turning, pointing them at their master. Beads of sweat appear on the man's forehead. No. Aim at her. The drones ignore him, weapons humming, full of potential. Slowly the man raises his arms, crossing them over his chest. He stares at his betraying hands, whimpering as they close around his throat. Is this it? Asks Masasi. The man begins to choke. Wait! Why? I'm only one master. There are more. Better than you? Yes, I can show you. She closes her fist, and the man flops forward, head slapping against the monitor, breath rattling in his throat. Take me to them. Now. In minutes, she is bursting into another room. This one is small, dark, its walls ridged foam, shaped to give an organic feel. The floor and ceiling are of similar design. In its centre sits a woman, her eyes closed. Grandmaster Heike, calls the man over Masasi's shoulder. You have a visitor, and she was most, insistent. I think she merits our full attention. The woman takes a slow breath, lets it out. Thank you, Yorin. You can go now. He glances at Masasi, waiting until she waves him away. You are the strongest master here? Heike smiles to herself. That's one way of putting it. Good. Show me your power. The woman takes another breath, slow and soft. Is that a threat? Yes. What will you do if I refuse? I'll make you show me. She makes a noise, something like a chuckle. Really? I don't think you will. The other one sneered at me too. He's not sneering anymore. Oh, I'm not sneering. Do you want to sit down? You must have come a long way. You must be tired. Masasi nearly growls an insult, but the thought interrupts her. What Heike says is true. She has been travelling a long time, and she is tired, right down to the bones. Shrugging, she sits. You see, Heike continues, we don't get many visitors out here, and those we do get always want something. I'm sure you didn't come all this way just to gather slaves, did you? No. No. You came here because you're looking for answers, for people who can help you. Masasi straightens. She does want help. And I can give you those answers, but only on one condition. This is more familiar. What do you want? If I do all I can to help you and tell you the truth as I see it, you must promise not to punish me for it. I don't understand you. You may not like what I'm going to tell you. Forgive me, but you're very young and very strong. I want your word that you'll not attack me, and then I'll do all I can for you. Masasi nods. After all, the request does seem very reasonable. Good. It seems we have an accord. You may begin. What? You may begin. Tell me about yourself. Why you have come here. What you want. I can't help you if you don't tell me what you need and why it is so important. And so Masasi does. At first she is self-conscious, halting, but soon she is lost in the telling, and time passes easily between them. When she finishes, she feels lighter, almost dizzy. "Well, can you help me?" There is a pause. "I am going to help you, though I suspect you aren't going to like it." Masasi frowns. Is this a trick? She looks at Heike's true face, but sees neither hope nor deception there. "I've studied the human mind all of my life. I've benefited from hundreds of years' worth of archives and the company of brilliant colleagues, but I have never seen or heard of anyone that can do what you can." "Masasi, the truth is that you are looking for a master when in fact you should be looking for students. If you want to find others like you, you're going to have to make them yourself." Chapter 16. The tainted creature prowls between rock piles. Like many of the inhabitants, it is hard to classify. Several generations of crossbreeding, coupled with flowering mutations, give it a mythical appearance. 2 heads, one beaked, one with a wolfish muzzle, a single feathered wing, as useless as it is colourful, and 2 powerful forelegs that drag its thick, muscled trunk along. There are many like it, variants scattered further south in the blasted lands. Lumped together under the name of mashups, most barely live long enough to breed. This one is near the end of its cycle and carries a bellyful of growing eggs. The need to survive, blunt and relentless, drives it on. To feed itself, to feed the eggs, to make them swell with life. As the suns begin to rise, scales shift hue, taking on the greys and browns of terrain, blending. It is close now. Scents sharpen, of food and fire and human prey, the trail of them carried on the air. Keeping low, the creature accelerates. Dawn's light washes out the dying fire. Vesper leans over the pit, enjoying the last of its heat. Her stomach grumbles. Duet's knife is already in her hand. Soon several strips of meat are cut away, and any lingering worries about its safety are banished under a succession of happy groans. The kid leaves them to it, trotting off to dispense with some morning business. Duet looks at the remains of the carcass, still mostly intact. Their stomachs, too small from rationed food, have been easily filled. "That should be good for a couple of days. Then you'll need to get us more." Vesper nods, warming to the idea of herself as hunter. "Where are we going next?" "Good question." The girl pulls the navpack out of her pocket and switches it on. Lines of topography sparkle over the dirt, showing settlements and paths of dead rivers and rocky ranges that dissect the land. We've still got a long way to go. Duet points to the flashing dot in the centre of the image. "Is that where we are?" "Yep, that's us." "Damn, I thought we'd be further south. What I wouldn't give for a skyship." "We'll get there eventually." "What makes you so sure?" Vesper shrugs. "We've got this far. But now we have to get past this mountain range. There's only one road on the navpack, but that takes us through verdigris." "Is that good or bad?" "Bad." "How do you know?" "My Uncle Harm told me about it." "I should have known. He used to live there. He said it was dangerous." "Do we have any choice?" "Well, we might be able to find our own way over the mountains." "And risk getting stuck out there, falling to our deaths or starving? I'd rather face a threat I can fight. Verdigris it is, then. She licks her lips. Before we go, I'm going to have some more. Good call. While Duet carves, the kid returns, scattering stones as he charges past the fire pit, still accelerating until legs lock, solid, and he topples with comic slowness onto one side. Duet barks out a laugh. That has to be the most useless animal I've ever seen. Something must have scared him. They faint when they're scared. Like I said. On the ground, by Vesper's feet, the sword begins to hum, interrupting. Sentence forgotten, Duet readies her knife, turning slowly while Vesper gathers the sword in her arms. Both of them strain for any sign of trouble. Seconds pass, and the landscape appears as lifeless as ever. Silvered wings flick open, dramatic, and an eye opens. Vesper follows its gaze, seeing an innocent pile of rock. As she stares, teeth appear within stone, stark white against the grey, and the outline of a body sliding, coiling, preparing to spring. "Duet! Look out!" The harmonized turns in time to see it fly at her, clocking the many threats, teeth, beak, talons, all coming at once. Her hands come up under one set of jaws, slamming them shut before they can reach her throat. Talons scream down her chest plate, 6 furrows not quite deep enough to touch skin. The beak punches through much more easily, knocking Duet onto her back. The creature looms over her, roaring. Duet's knife is not intimidated, answering with a silent thrust, but thick scales confound the blade, turning it aside with ease. Before beak and jaws can descend again, she throws the knife. It spins towards the canine head, which yelps, surprised, as the knife bounces off a scaled eyelid. For a moment the beast is stunned, long enough for the harmonized to find her feet and draw her sword. Automatically, Vesper's hand moves towards her pocket. Only when the pistol is in her grasp does she remember the weapon is spent, useless. In her other hand, the sheathed sword rattles in fury, tilting towards the tainted creature. Duet spins away from a snapping beak, striking out on the creature's neck and shoulder. She jumps back from another attack, checks to see if the creature is hurt. Nothing. No change in the way the head moves, no damage to the neck. The scales are not even scratched. Shit! There is no time for further strategy. The creature is on her again, harder this time, as if it senses her fading confidence. She parries and twists, strikes again, trying her luck with its legs. It is like hitting a wall. One of the talons catches her thigh, snagging on her armour, spinning her like an over-enthusiastic dance partner. Duet falls onto her front. An eye tears itself from the creature and looks up at the girl. Vesper meets its gaze, is held by it. The pistol drops unnoticed from her fingers. The creature's shadows fall over Duet. Still dazed, she moves blindly, desperately, anything preferable to staying still. The creature snaps at her rolling body, teeth glancing off her armour. As if in a dream, Vesper's empty hand moves towards the sword's hilt. Wingtips curl, encouraging. The air becomes tight, holding its breath. Vesper blinks, looking from her hand to where Duet struggles, and back again. Understanding comes, draining the colour from her face. Action is required, and the sword is waiting, demanding to be used. In desperation, Duet scoops up a rock, raising it before her like a shield. The creature snares it in its beak, tossing it over a shoulder. Unarmed, tired, Duet cries out, a mix of fear and anger. The creature opens its jaws, opens its beak, rearing back. A chunk of meat sails past, landing with a wet smack next to the creature's talons. It pauses, then snaps up the morsel. Another soon follows, landing next to it. "Back away!" hisses Vesper.
Move very slowly.
Duet edges back on her elbows. The creature growls at her, baring its teeth. Duet stops. Vesper circles into her field of vision, sheathed sword in one hand, a long strip of flesh in the other.
Here we are. No need to fight. There's plenty to go round.
The creature watches her warily. It tenses as if to spring, but then glances at the sword, pauses. Vesper lays the meat down.
Here it is. All for you.
As soon as she has circled clear, the creature pounces on it, one head eating, the other watching, warning them off. They pack with forced calm, Vesper sometimes pausing to throw fresh morsels the creature's way. The kid wakes up. Halfway through a mighty yawn, he sees the creature. His eyes bulge, his jaw locks, and he flops back where he fell. Vesper collects him, and they retreat, slowly, keeping a measured pace, putting good distance between them and the creature. Then they run. Over half the rat and the empty pistol are left behind. Jem runs down a filth-crusted street, clutching something small in his fist. He is not alone. Those with homes go inside, slamming doors shut on reflex. The less fortunate beg for sanctuary. A scant few are shown mercy. The rest do what they always do. They run until they can't run any more, then hide. Only Jem knows why he is running. The others know that trouble is coming, and that is enough. In New Horizon, it is proximity rather than guilt that tends to bring punishment. Behind them, the demagogue's forces spread across the tainted city. A mix of infernals and half-breeds, slaves and opportunists, leaking from the palace like a bad smell. Gutterface lumbers out after them, one of the last. Jem is only a few streets away, but already he slows, prolonged malnutrition stamping itself on his health. Thin flanks heave as he bends forward, one hand resting on his knee, the other clenched tight around something small, pressed to his chest. His heart tremors like a little bird's, fast and fragile. Thudding alongside its delicate beats come the sound of giant footsteps. He glances over his shoulder in time to see Gutterface arrive at the far end of the street. It surveys the filthy buildings while its children chitter, swarming over its swollen feet, nestling in fatty folds, all impatient for further entertainment. It has come for him. A flabby arm is raised, tree trunk thick, and the impish creatures sing with delight. He chokes a sob. It is pointing at him. Trembling legs carry him around a corner, temporarily away from the infernal's sight. He stumbles on, watching his feet flash in front of him as if they belong to somebody else. The ground is slick with unidentified gunk. He slips and lurches forward, grabbing at random passers-by for support. His hand snags a sleeve. Worn fabric tears, then holds, gaining him an angry look and the time to get his footing. All in all, a fair trade. In other places he would draw attention, a person in his state, hard features locked in fear, in determination, sweat dripping from the ends of his hair, clearly on the run. In New Horizon he fits right in. Past crusty-faced beggars and long-toothed merchants he goes, never attracting more than a glance. He thinks he is going south, but worries he is not. The city has changed during his incarceration. Many of the old landmarks have collapsed to be replaced by simpler, meaner structures. On he goes, slipping into an alley, forcing feet to take yet more steps, till spots dance before eyes and thoughts wander, taking his mind to other times and places where life was merely grim. The respite is brief, reality returning with a slap. Ahead, the alley is blocked. He stops, staring at the buildings that are folded on top of each other, a scrum of ruined architecture. If he were stronger, he might be able to climb it, but he is not, and there is no time. And now he hears them, twisted, childish giggles that draw closer with every breath. He opens his hand, stares at its contents. The sight turns his stomach, but there is nothing inside to evacuate. Swallowing down the bile, he approaches the rubble, full of nooks and cracks, perfect in its own way. Yes, he thinks, it will have to be here. Gutterface stops suddenly. It knows Samael must be close, can feel the ghost of his essence, faint fingerprints smeared in the air. And there it is again, the slightest scent of him. It turns and points down a narrow alley, and its children screech, delighted. The alley appears to hold little of interest. One corner contains a woman wrapped in a plastic net, bruises shining through the holes. Another, a man who tries not to look at them. Both exude fear. A few rats abandon their exploration of the woman's leg, scurrying away to their holes. Gutterface's children rush to take their place, eager to play. One jumps onto the woman's chest, another sinks its teeth into the man's ankle. The woman is too weak to scream. The man is not. Gutterface points again, over the heads of the beleaguered humans, to the rubble opposite. But its children are too busy having fun, pulling at limbs, prodding, mocking the sounds of people suffering. Essence flashes with anger, and the children freeze. Gutterface picks up one of the nearest and throws it down the alley. The others are quick to follow under their own power. Soon the man and the remaining rats are gone, leaving the woman to groan out her last. As the infernals search, pulling apart the rubble brick by brick, Gutterface feels Samael is almost close enough to touch, and yet it had expected a stronger flavour. It had expected more. It had expected Samael to fight, not bury himself in the dirt like this. Perhaps he was injured in their previous confrontation, or perhaps the spawn of the usurper's spawn is weaker than they thought. Other infernals from the demagogue's court arrive before Gutterface's children find anything. Some join the search, while others flex their claws. There is a chirrup of pleasure, and a gaggle of its children scurry back to gather at Gutterface's ankles. A clawed hand tugs at the loose skin of its knee, calling for attention. Gutterface looks down to see a cluster of faces peering up, hope scrawled on their sharp little features. They reek of Samael, but there is no sign of him. Deep within its shell, Gutterface feels uneasy. The hand tugs again, and it sees they are holding something out, an offering. A toe, white as marble, capped with half a blackened nail, a hard, dry thing. Within it swirls the merest breath of Samael's essence, a single thought, repeating itself over and over.
Here, 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 here.
3 specks trudge alone. Around them the land has flattened out, dull and dusty, stretching off towards the horizon and its distant mountains. Vesper sighs. Muscles normally content to exist in secret have joined the others, aching, complaining, and within her boots clusters of blisters grow raw with every step. The sword is ever heavier, rubbing skin red where it brushes against her. Duet is little better. The split metal of her armour has been bent back into rough shape, jagged edges trimmed away. Sweaty bandages peek through holes. Even the kid's usual bounciness seems diminished. A wind blows across them, lackluster. Beneath their feet, abandoned goods blend slowly with the landscape.
A clothes rack juts out like the arm of a drowning man. A helmet, half buried and camouflaged with dust, catches Vesper's foot, making her stumble. The kid snorts, but when Vesper looks at him, his attention is elsewhere, his expression innocent. Vesper opens her mouth to speak, but one look at Duet's demeanour changes her mind. Words break down, coalescing into another sigh. A young man balances on the shoulders of a purple-skinned half-breed, a giant pair of binoculars strapped to his head. They stand atop Verdegree's battlements, alternately scanning the flatlands and looking over their shoulders. They are in a place they should not be. This is nothing new for either of them. The half-breed wears a resigned expression.
"You have a bony arse."
The young man chuckles.
That's because I have a greedy father who keeps all the food and money to himself. But don't worry, bros. If we pull this off, my arse will grow so fat you'll be begging to use it as a pillow.
"I don't care about your arse. I care about getting paid."
The only thing you care about is the smoke.
"Is it?"
Well, there might be other things.
He wiggles his bum against Bruce's shoulders.
But it's the smoke that gets you out of bed in the morning, or the lack of it.
"Fuck! Stop that!"
Why so glum? We're on the road to glory.
"Doesn't feel glorious to me. If the marshals or your father finds out we're here, we're both in for it."
Then stop swearing so loud.
Bruce pouts, lowers his voice.
"Can you see anything?"
Patience, my friend, patience. Wealth favours the bold, but only if they keep their shit together, and sooner or later the malice will come.
"For your sake, I hope it's sooner."
The young man leans forward.
Seems like my luck is in then. I see them.
"Are you sure?"
Not many others coming from the north these days. They look pretty awful. Perfect.
He slithers off Bruce's shoulders.
Time to go.
"What's the hurry? I thought we had to be patient."
He smacks the half-breed smartly on the backside.
Fuck patience.
"Fuck you!"
Of course, he replies, grinning.
But first, we get this done.
Chapter 17. The walls of Verdegree are strong. Proudly sporting scorch marks from past conflicts, they link the city to the surrounding mountains. Much of the city's past glory has gone, but 3 of the great towers remain, gold-tipped and shining in the sun's light. A flag hangs in the weak breeze. It holds the picture of a woman's arm, bent, bicep firm, fist clenched, unquestionably human. Vesper smiles. That's a good sign. Duet sizes up the giant gates. Is it?
When my Uncle Harm lived here, Verdegree was controlled by the usurper and the uncivil. He was part of the rebels that fought against them. They must have won. You see? That flag is their sign. You think they'll open the doors for his niece? Of course. My uncle's really nice. I'll bet he's got lots of friends here.
Despite fatigue, they find themselves walking faster, thoughts of food and comfortable beds urging them on. Even so, progress is slow, the suns circling past the horizon, taking warmth and colour with them. By the time they arrive, the gates are a square of black, blotting out the scant stars behind. Now what? Asks Duet. We could knock. Go ahead. Me? You're the one with the contacts.
Okay, then.
The gates seem much larger close up. Vesper swallows. The kid's head pushes against her dangling palm.
Okay, then.
Her foot moves forward, hesitant. An ominous creak comes from the gates, and a crack of pale light appears between them. The silhouette of a man appears in the light, small, almost ridiculous in comparison to the great gates. He scurries forward to meet them. Vesper raises a hand in greeting.
Hello?
Her hand is taken and subjected to a rigorous shaking.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to Verdigris. There is much to discuss, but little time. Is that not always the way?
Who are you?
Introductions will come soon, I promise, but now we must go. This way!
He leads Vesper by the hand, and Duet and the kid follow. They pass through the gates, which clank shut behind them. A uniformed usurperkin sweats by a metal wheel, muscles bulging as she turns the old mechanism tight. Her name is Jolie, and she is second generation. Not as huge as her father, but far larger than her untainted grandparents. The man looks like a child next to her.
Thank you, dear lady,
he whispers.
Much appreciated.
She nods as he slips something small and flat into her back pocket.
We were never here.
He pulls Vesper along, navigating dingy streets with the confidence of a local.
Not far now.
Lonely moans sound from time to time. Vesper's instinctive move towards them is checked by the others.
Nothing you can do for those ones,
whispers the man.
Best to keep your distance if you don't want to go the same way.
Vesper frowns, but allows herself to be led on. A door opens in the darkness, and the man darts through. Vesper, Duet, and the kid follow, the door closing quickly behind them. They find themselves in a room, small and packed with boxes. The smell of salt and meat issues from nearby. A single lamp sways, its light playing over the room's other occupant, picking out a pair of disinterested eyes and a lean, purple chest. Duet puts her hand to her sword. Quickly, the smaller man steps between them with raised arms and an easy smile.
So, here we are. A place to rest your heads. Not exactly home, eh? But, as my father says, the beggar cannot be the chooser.
Vesper blinks.
Thank you?
No thanks are necessary. You are a woman in need of a friend, and I am happy to be that friend.
Who are you?
My name is Ez.
We call him Little Ez,
adds the purple-skinned man.
Why?
It is not as you'd think. The name is ironic, given to me on account of my huge...
His grin widens, and he waggles his eyebrows.
blessing.
Vesper stares. Little Ez only grins the wider.
My associate here is called Bruce. No irony there, eh?
He chuckles as the half-breed rolls his eyes.
I see you have travelled a long way. You are tired, yes? Of course you are. Tired and hungry. Little Ez will bring you food and lay out the finest beds for you.
Thank you.
It is nothing. The least we can do for such honoured guests.
Duet takes in the low ceiling, the grubby crates. Who are we hiding from?
A good question. Clearly there is no pulling the tent over your eyes. Let us be honest with each other. Little Ez sees the sword you carry. Surely such a thing can only have come from the Shining City? They say it is alive. They say it is one of the 7. Some call it the Malice.
Duet settles into a ready stance. Only Bruce seems to notice, a muscle twitching in his hand. The kid sneezes.
Many seek it,
continues Little Ez.
The first has offered a great reward for any who deliver the malice to it, and the first is wealthier than what's left of the empire. So, you see, you are hiding from everyone.
But, says Vesper, I thought Verdigris was friendly. I thought it stood against infernals.
You are a good-hearted girl. I see that. It is beautiful, like a rare flower. Don't you agree, Bruce?
The half-breed shrugs.
Ignore him. He's a savage with no eye for the sweeter things in life. Where was I? Ah, yes, like a flower. But, my friend, I have to warn you, flowers are delicate things, easily stepped on, if you see what I mean. Verdigris will not accept infernal rule, but it still needs to survive. We trade with New Horizon in the south and the first nomads in the north. Not directly, you understand, but we all know where the goods come from. They have demon fingerprints all over them. A sad fact, but there are not many choices, and this city, for all its friendliness, needs to eat.
Then why are you helping us?
Another good question, and one I am glad you are asking. My associate and I will help you out of loyalty to the mighty empire of the Winged Eye. We hear the empire rewards loyalty most generously. True?
Vesper's agreement is hurried.
Enough to regret not going to the first.
We don't have much with us, begins Vesper, wincing as little Ez's expression sours. But we'll see to it that you're richly rewarded.
How richly?
What about your own island?
Ah, a noble offer. But islands are worth nothing unless they are yours to give.
Not mine. The Seven's. If you help us, she licks her lips, we'll give you Sonorous. Little Ez bows.
The Seven are indeed generous. We accept their gracious offer. One thing, though. How do I know I can trust you?
Duet's answer is automatic. It's a crime to lie in the presence of the Seven. They pause, all eyes moving to the sword. Little Ez smiles weakly.
Of course, of course. Then it is settled.
He shakes Vesper's hand again.
I suggest you both rest while you can. We will return with food shortly. Nobody should disturb you here, but if they do, best to kill first and save the questions for later.
Under the cover of darkness, a diminutive man and a sour-faced half-breed whisper.
Interesting conversation, no?
Bruce rolls his eyes.
It's just us now. You can talk normal.
I thought you liked my sales voice.
No, I hate it. You sound like your bloody father. Why'd you do it anyway?
Lots of reasons. People expect me to sound like him. You know that's not his real voice either.
Serious?
Yeah. He told me once. Said he made more sales when he used it, and he told me that it was easier to lie when you don't use your normal voice. But what do you think?
I told you. I hate it.
No, you idiot. About our new friends and their very generous offer.
I think they're full of shit.
You don't think they'll deliver an island to us then?
Last I heard, the first helped kick the Empire out of Sonorous.
Little Ez nods.
I heard the same. And even if I hadn't, that kid can't lie for shit.
That's true. Nor the woman. Thought her eyes were going to pop out of her head when the girl started lying. You reckon they got anything worth anything under those rags?
They look desperate and poor to me. Shame. I was hoping for desperate and rich.
I told you, didn't I? I said they'd have nothing.
A finger strokes Bruce's chest, soothing, and the young man gives him a sympathetic look.
Of course you did. Now you have the joy of being right.
Lucky me. I suppose you've got a plan, though.
He flashes Bruce a smile.
Naturally. We go back to plan A, sell them to the first, and fast, before anyone else gets wind they've even arrived. I need to find the money to get a message out of the city. It may take a while.
What should I do?
Go feed our friends and make sure they don't do anything stupid.
You want me to drug them?
No. Don't give them any reason to be suspicious. Just be your usual self and don't smile too much.
Fuck you!
Little Ez smiles and pinches the half-breed on the bottom. Bruce's half-closed eyes narrow further.
Fuck you.
Soon, my lusty friend, soon.
The wheelbarrow is crudely made, but strong. A good fit for the usurperkin that uses it. His uniform is worn open at the collar, his sleeves rolled back over thick forearms. In each hand he carries a child's body. Even in the dark, they are disturbingly still. First one, then the other is put into the barrow, as gently as Max can manage. He feels sorry for the parents, old friends of his, and consoles himself that they are not alive to witness the end of their line. He sprays the door to warn off any well-wishers. Another house claimed by the plague. Max sighs, sure that the barrow will be more than full before he's finished for the night. Footsteps march loudly down the street towards him. They are heavy, purposeful, belonging to his sister, Maxie. He knows from their pace that she is not happy about something. A second set accompany them, stumbling rather than walking, as if being half-dragged. He smiles grimly, knowing how it feels to be in their position. Maxie marches into the light of the barrow's lamp. Her hair spikes are lightening at the roots, the first signs of getting older. Usurperkin are blessed to grow strong much faster than their human counterparts, and cursed to age just as quickly. For now, though, the changes are merely cosmetic. Self-conscious, Max touches his scalp, aware of the way his body mirrors hers in all things, while his sister hauls her cargo into the light.
One of yours,
she announces, throwing another usurperkin down between them. Young and also uniformed, she looks up at him, pleading. Max groans. He has many children spread across the city and beyond. Like him, they have grown too quickly into adulthood. Like him, they have a tendency to make mistakes.
What is it this time? This one opened the gates without permission. I didn't do nothing.
Maxie's hand moves smartly across the back of his daughter's head.
She claims she was testing the mechanism despite the fact that the city is under lockdown. Ah, Jolie, he says, that was dumb.
She looks up at him, pleading.
I didn't do nothing.
Maxie hits her again.
You opened the gates. One of mine saw people come in.
Jolie's reply is too slow to be convincing.
That's spawn shit.
Max sees Maxie raising her hand and intervenes quickly.
Hold on, don't break her. Don't break her. She broke lockdown, took a bribe. I didn't. Let sons know who inside. I didn't. And now she's lying to her superiors.
Max steps between them. His twin takes on the incredulous expression that heralds future violence, while Jolie cowers behind him.
Right, but she's my daughter.
He rubs at the stubble of his chin, slow and thoughtful.
So I should be the one to beat the truth out of her.
Maxie folds her arms.
All right.
The kid jumps onto one of the crates. He turns slowly on the spot, wobbling a little, but keeping balance. Satisfaction is short-lived, however. The rotation has brought another crate into view, a higher crate. It is smaller than the one the kid currently stands on and less secure, but it is higher. The jump required is by no means certain for little legs. The kid chews thoughtfully, weighing the options. He probably shouldn't. He is quite comfortable where he is. But the other crate is higher. Vesper sits against a nearby stack, rubbing her empty belly.
Do you think they'll be long? I'm starving.
Duet has stood by the door since they left, fingers curled around the hilt of her sword.
This isn't right.
What's wrong?
That man. His skin.
I know. Do you think it hurts? She shoots Vesper a quick glare, then resumes her vigil at the door.
Who cares? He's tainted. We can't trust him.
The other one seemed friendly.
He was oilier than a fish. I say we go now and take our chances.
Go where? We have no food. We're exhausted. If what he said was true, then we can't just go walking the streets.
Maybe he made that up to keep us here.
Vesper shrugs. Maybe. Footsteps approach the door, then stop. Vesper instinctively reaches for the pistol that once weighed down her pocket. It is gone, leaving her fingers to make a fist around empty air. Duet's sword is in her hand, blade held high, ready to strike. The door opens. Bruce walks in, hefting a bag. It drops from his fingers when he sees Duet.
Fuck!
Slowly, he puts up his hands.
It's only me.
I can see that, she replies, closing the door but keeping her sword up. What's in the bag?
Food, like we promised.
Show us. No fast moves. Vesper murmurs an apology as Bruce opens the bag. Inside are a trio of cooked lizards, each the size of a puppy and run through with a stick. They bear expressions of profound surprise. Duet's sword wavers, her nose wrinkling behind her visor. What are they? Bruce shrugs.
Mouse spawn, or maybe bird spawn. Hard to say.
For a moment, they all stare at the lizards. I think they're bird spawn, says Vesper, uncertain.
Really?
Replies Bruce. The girl points. I think I can see nubs on the back of the one on the left. Wings could grow from them. Duet's sword slides back into its sheath. I'm not eating that. Bruce takes one of the skewers.
More for us, then.
They eat in silence, Duet making no effort to disguise her dislike of the situation. Bruce assumes a nonchalant position, careful not to make eye contact. Silver feathers ripple, restless, as if moved by an unpleasant dream. Vesper watches them, alternately chewing her lip and the unknown meat. More footsteps approach the door, and Bruce is grateful for the distraction.
At last,
he mutters, getting up. Duet moves to one side of the door. The half-breed goes to the other. No love is exchanged between them. Bruce's face sours.
It isn't him,
he hisses.
Shit! It sounds like more than one of them. Knowing our luck, it's marshals, or worse.
Vesper hugs her knees. What should we do? Duet raises her sword, but Bruce shakes his head.
Do nothing. Say nothing. No noise at all. Got it?
They all wait, bodies rigid, hardly daring to breathe. The footsteps get closer, louder. Right past the door they go, maintaining speed, growing quieter as they move on. Bruce holds his hand up, counselling further silence. They are so intent on the door that they do not see the kid reach his decision, do not see him tense his hind legs. Bruce lowers his hand, and Vesper lets out a huge sigh. Even Duet relaxes a little. The kid jumps. 1111 years ago. The quarry has gone. The workers persuaded to go elsewhere. In its place is a large domed building, squatting next to an innocent patch of rock. People gather outside it, a mix of men and women of varying ages, all hoping to be accepted. They have travelled from the far reaches of the world, from the dagger states in the west and the constructed isles in the east. A few have been sent straight from the growth tubes, 36 babies frozen inside square cases, presided over by sweating gene techs. All seek the master's approval. The gathering is something of an oddity, forcing an unlikely mix of social groups and designations. Conversation is strained by more than just nerves, and all are grateful when the door finally opens. Collectively, the group shows reverence, through inclinations of the head or body, by raising hands together, palms pressing. The moment is solemn and dignified, a fitting greeting for their new master. Masassi sticks her head outside and sweeps them all with a look. A single word is muttered, disparaging, and she withdraws again, closing the door with unnecessary violence. For a moment the group remain as they are. Then nervous looks are exchanged. An older man, uncomfortable in his ceremonial robes, scratches at his head. "Do you think this is a test?" Another in the group speaks up, wearing almost identical robes.
"No."
It is the first time members of the severed nation have spoken civilly in nearly 30 years, but both are too stunned to appreciate it.
"But she said something. I'm sure I saw her lips move."
The other man sits down on a rock, shaking his head.
"She said, crap."
"Are you sure?"
"I'm sure."
The first man scratches his head some more. "But what do you think it means?"
"It means," replies the second, his voice becoming shrill, "that we aren't good enough."
The two men sit together, joined in misery. A young woman in a blue exosuit strides past them, servos humming.
"I didn't come all this way to be turned down."
Her boots make deep prints in the ground as she stamps her way towards the building. Her clenched fist clangs impressively against the door. There is a pause.
"Open this door!"
she shouts, continuing to hammer. The rest of the group creep back a few paces, underlining the fact that they do not stand together. With a sudden jerk, the door opens, so fast that the woman cannot stop her hand rushing down towards Masassi's head. There is a flash of movement and a crunch as the blue fist is caught in a silver palm. Masassi's and the woman's eyes meet. The woman swallows in a throat suddenly dry.
"I like you,"
says Masassi.
Thank you."
"Come." She leads the woman around the side of the building, still holding her hand, and points towards the empty rocks.
"What do you see?" "Dust, rocks, a few hills."
"And?"
"And is that a yellowback beetle?"
"What else?" Curved shoulder plates droop.
"I don't see anything."
Masassi lets go of her hand.
"Didn't think so."
Wait, what do you see?
Her eyes are drawn to a space several inches above ground level.
I see a microfracture in the skin of our world and the storm that's going to tear it open.
She begins to tilt forward, as if about to fall, then checks herself, planting her feet, forcing her eyes down. And that's just the beginning.
Can you stop it?
Not alone.
Then...
She tilts her head, trying to catch Masasi's eye.
Let me help you.
You're not strong enough.
Then teach me.
Some things can't be taught. The woman thinks for a moment.
They say you can make people do anything you want. Is that true?
Masasi nods.
Then make me see as you do.
Masasi frowns, then smiles. The idea had never occurred to her. You're sure?
I'm ready,
replies the woman, full of the confidence of youth. In Masasi's silver palm, an iris opens, bathing them both in brightness. She rests her hand on the woman's chest, extending her energies slowly, memories of burst essence still fresh years later. The woman's essence is stronger than most, but even a dazzling firefly can vanish against the radiance of a star. She wills the woman to be more than she is, charging her spirit, polishing, expanding. They share a smile, blazing silver, and the light builds between them. Too late, Masasi hears the screaming. The woman's other face, the true one, is growing, stretching like a picture on a balloon, at first merely increasing in size, but then distorting, pulling apart, burning. An exosuit clanks to the ground, smoke pouring from its joints. Masasi staggers back, staring in horror at her hand. When she finally looks up, she sees the rest of the group are watching her. Old anger quickly returns, hardening her face again. "Who's next?" she barks. Nobody answers, except one young man who retches noisily. Her mouth curls in disgust, and she takes a step forward. They run without another word. A headdress and a sandal are left behind, along with 36 babies, frozen in square crystal. Lips pressed together to stop them shaking, she picks up the first of the cryo cases and carries it inside. Chapter 18. Essence lamps lend the room a green tinge, and its occupants a sickly pallor. Tough Call, once rebel leader and now Verdegree's chief official, hopes it is only a trick of the light. She has lost too many of her people to illness recently. One by one, the leaders of Verdegree shuffle into the emergency meeting. Marshals Max and Maxie come first and flank her chair. Neither looks happy, and she suspects that the fresh scabs on Max's knuckles are connected. Next comes Eze, the stripes on his tunic curving around his belly. Cavain joins them soon after, red tattoos looking like bloodstains in the alien light. Tough Call makes a point of looking around. Where are the others? Where's Dr. Grains? Eze pulls at his beard.
Having more of the fun than we are, yes?
Shut up, Eze. If I may, begins Cavain, clearing her throat. The woman irritates Tough Call, always seeming polite, but never feeling so. Dr. Grains apologizes, but he cannot attend. Did he say why? I'm afraid it's the plague.
Ha!
Booms Eze.
Even the doctors are sick.
Eze, snaps Tough Call, I refer you to my earlier comment.
Many apologies, great leader.
What about Snare and Galloway? Cavain raises a finger. I'm afraid Galloway is sick also.
I don't know about Snare. Anyone else?
Max bends down to her ear, his whispers carrying easily across the small chamber.
I heard he's on the prowl tonight, boss.
He's an architect, not a bird of prey. On the prowl for what?
Dunno, boss.
He's supposed to be here.
You want me to go find him?
Tough Call brings her remaining fist down on the table.
What I want is for people to do their jobs!
She takes a breath, consciously relaxes her hand. No,
I'll deal with Snare later.
What have you got for me, Cavane? Did Dr. Graines find anything useful about the plague before he fell ill?
As you know, our medical supplies are a dwindling resource.
Just the useful bits, Cavane. I'm well aware of how bad things are.
Unfortunately, there has been no definitive progress on how the disease is transmitted, and so far none of the treatments have been effective in slowing or reversing the symptoms. Dr. Graines did note that those with partial tainting survived longer, and that there have been no usurperkin patients so far.
Maxie? All of yours still healthy?
Yes, boss. We're all good. If it could get us, we'd know by now.
Okay. Anyone got any good news?
But Tough Call notices Cavane has a finger raised, her manner imperious, her face a mask of patience.
Yes, what? Our stockpiles of grain are diminishing. The useful bits, Cavane. It happens that the new seeds we brought back from the wall stain are attracting new predators into the city. Some kind of bug. I fear they might have brought this new plague with them.
Find out! Drag Dr. Graines off his deathbed if you have to. This time tomorrow I want answers. Now, any good news I can tell our people? Only Eze's smile lights the room, 2 white teeth shining amid a sea of frowning faces.
The mother of my children started to cough the other day, so perhaps Eze has hope for new love. No? Too soon?
His smile continues, undaunted.
Then there is only bad news. Trade is the blood of the city, yes? But you have closed the doors, blocked its flow. The people grow restless. It is not for Eze that I worry, for Eze is always prepared. But you must understand, great lady, that many live straight from the hand to the mouth. Trade must go on, or they will starve.
Get to the point.
Tomorrow the nomads and the caravans come. We must be letting them in.
And expose them to the plague too. Out of the question.
It is true, some may die. It is a gamble. But Eze will take bad odds over no odds every time.
No. There has to be another way.
Eze could arrange for how to say, a quieter market to be held outside the city. Eze could buy the goods from our people and trade on their behalf with the others. Then everyone is happy.
Tough Call has no illusions about Eze's motivations, but her people need to eat. All right. Make it happen.
Eze will need the help from those blessed with health and green skin. Perhaps Marshal Max and his many children could help poor Eze with the lifting and moving.
Maxie will go with you.
Delightful,
exclaims Eze, his smile a shade dimmer than before. Now get moving, the lot of you. They file out much faster than they arrived. Max pauses by the door, glances back. Tough Call watches the sweat weave its way down the creases in his forehead. Well?
I got some news, boss. Bad news.
She beckons him closer. Then keep your voice down, for son's sake.
Right, boss.
He squats down on his haunches in front of her, but she still has to look up to meet his eyes.
My daughter, Jolie, opened the gates.
What? When?
Just before I came here.
I take it they're shut again now.
Max nods.
But
she let some people in.
who?
She don't know. There were two of them, some kind of soldier and a girl carrying a sword that looked too big for her. Oh, and they had a little pet goat with them.
Tough Call is on her feet.
Was the soldier in armour?
I think so. What's wrong, boss?
It's the Malice, you idiot! The Malice is in my city, and I bet I'm the last one on the council to know it.
She makes for the door.
Meet me downstairs in 20 minutes with everyone you trust.
Pausing, she turns back to the usurperkin. And Max, break out the weapons. The big ones. Remarkably, the kid is unharmed. He stands in an oasis of calm, surrounded by chaos. Cheap crates have cracked easily, spilling their treasures. Fat beetle corpses glint like gemstones as they emerge into the light, a waterfall of insects, shrieking with voices of broken glass. Bruce swears several times, but the exact nature and colour of the oaths are lost in the cacophony. Vesper and Duet join him anyway. The noise ends abruptly, leaving echoes to ring in their place, ear-filling and awful. Eventually, they too clear, allowing the sounds of the night back in. Girl, harmonized, and half-breed all strain to listen, hoping that the room has contained the worst of the disturbance. A brief, optimistic quiet is broken by the sound of footsteps returning. More careful this time. Bruise goes a paler shade of purple. Duet readies herself by the door. The kid skips easily up the broken crates until he stands on the highest one, triumphant. Someone knocks from the other side.
Open up!
Vesper pushes one of the crates in front of it.
Open up, I say!
Vesper grabs another, but this one is too heavy for her to move alone.
Help me,
she hisses at Bruce. The half-breed's face is a picture of incomprehension.
What's the point?
Duet keeps her eyes on the door.
Don't make me come over there.
Bruce is no stranger to threats. He assesses this one instantly and sets to work with uncommon vigour. Knocking turns to pounding, and soon the door shakes in its frame. Vesper and Bruce bolster it first with crates, then their own bodies. The pounding gets stronger, more rhythmic, the strikes of a ram. Each jolt is felt through the door, through the barricade, through their shoulders, and yet they hold. The pounding stops. Voices are heard on the other side of the door, the unmistakable sounds of orders being given. A new noise begins, like a helicopter's engine, high-pitched and spinning and fast. Unnoticed by the others, the sword on Vesper's back twitches, an eye opening as if nudged awake.
Is there another way out?
Yells Vesper. Bruce just looks at the floor.
Could we try talking to them?
The question elicits a choked noise from the half-breed, part sob, part laugh.
Then what are we going to do?
Save your breath,
replies Duet.
for the fighting.
Tough Call hefts the long tube onto her shoulder. Silvered scrollwork runs its length, beautiful symbols unread for more than a millennium. It has been 12 years since she last held it, and unlike her, it hasn't aged a day. A squad of young usurperkins stand with her, weapons appearing normal in their oversized hands. Several of them are smiling. Max is still sweating, and not from the exercise.
Bad news, boss.
What now?
I got the weapons like you said, but some of them are missing.
Her knuckles whiten around the launcher's grip. Someone broke in.
Dunno, boss. Nothing's broke, but they took some of our big guns.
Before she has time to retort, they hear the sound of spitting metal, deep and fast. Tough Call turns towards the sound. That came from the north quarter.
Go, go, go!
Humming slugs of metal punch through the door, a swarm of singing death, shredding it and the crates behind. One goes through Bruce's shoulder, another through his leg, tossing him across the room. Vesper barely has time to register the blockade disintegrating in front of her. The sword hums angrily on her back, a counternote to the singing bullets, urging them away. But the sword is sheathed, its voice muffled. Bullets bend, but not completely, stinging an ear, grazing a thigh. Vesper throws herself to the floor, arms and legs spread flat. A few seconds later, the pain kicks in. The kid wobbles on his collapsing perch, bleating and jumping clear. Duet stays by the door, crouched low, waiting. Bullets chip away at the wall, inches from her head. She doesn't move, body clenched in expectation of more injury. This time she is lucky. As quickly as it began, the gunfire stops, though the engine continues to whine in the background. Through the shattered mess of the doorway, people come, hooded and darkly dressed. In their arms they heft guns that are too big for them. Long-nosed and elegant weapons of another age, meant for better things. Two clamber over the wreckage, intent on Vesper and the sword at her back. One stays in the doorway, covering them. Duet kills him first. Her blade flicks out, finding the spot just below his chin. Blood washes over his chest in a sudden gout. Unaware that their comrade has fallen, the two men close in on the quivering girl. She tries to back away from them, but they raise their weapons, and she stops, defeated. From their left comes an angry bleat, followed by the sounds of a small head connecting with a knee. The knee buckles with an ugly crack. While one drops, screaming, the other swings round his gun to take revenge on the kid. Instead of a small animal, he is surprised to find Duet there instead, her sword arcing towards his face. Instinct alone saves him as he brings the weapon up. Sparks fly, and her sword lodges deep into the gun, sticking there. Both try to pull their weapons free. Neither succeed. The other man on the floor recovers quickly. He realizes he has dropped his gun. Vesper realizes this too. They both grab for it. Both get a hold. Vesper cannot compete with the man's strength, but she grips it tenaciously as the man tries to shake her off. Vesper's teeth jangle against each other. Her arms jerk angrily in their sockets, but she holds on. The man changes tactic. He releases one hand and punches Vesper in the face. The girl screeches, her grip loosens. The man pulls back again, but hears an angry bleat to his left. He turns to find the kid glaring at him, head tilted, rushing forward. At the same moment, Duet's visor bursts into light, stunning her opponent. He blinks at her, catching brief snapshots of her movements. Her left hand dropping. Blink, returning, a knife jutting from it. Blink, stabbing down, blink. Mercifully, he feels only the first of the 3 strikes. The harmonized whirls around to find the last man on his back, clutching at a broken nose, while the kid watches as if daring the man to sit up. Duet finishes him quickly and returns to the doorway. Vesper's breath comes too fast, and she begins to shake. She looks left, then right, then again, not really seeing. Finally, her eyes settle on Bruce's foot, flopping sadly out of some wreckage. The girl closes her eyes. She takes another breath, slower this time. She opens her eyes and stands up. Her legs still tremble, but they manage to get her across the room. Bruce is a crumpled mess. Blood oozes from his wounds, and veins stand proud on his arms and chest, the juices inside them vibrating. His mouth moves, but no words come.
"Get down!" shouts Duet. "We've got more coming!"
Legs suddenly weak, Vesper grabs at the wall for support.
"How many?" "Too many!"
Max sets Tough Call down on the rooftop. She moves to the opposite edge and raises the long tube until the scope is level with her eyes. Through it she sees a cluster of figures fanning out, stalking towards a warehouse. They are hooded, dressed for stealth, unrecognizable. Their weapons, however, are all too familiar. On the opposite side of the street are 3 more men and a mounted gun, its barrel spinning with soft song, a relic from another age, a treasure. Her treasure. Hers and Verdegree's. Stolen. "Have your people ready to go on my signal." She makes a few adjustments to her aim, tracking slightly ahead of the group. Max nods, signalling his marshals crouched in the alley below.
"We're giving them a warning, boss."
"No, Max. They took our weapons and are using them against our city. We're not going to give them a warning, we're going to turn them into one." The silvery tube is light and she is strong, but even so it is hard to aim steady with only one hand. Luckily for Tough Call, her weapon does not require pinpoint accuracy. The shell fires, seeming to bulge slightly in the air, as if taking a breath. It lands a little to the right of the group and slightly in front. Before her eyes shut, she catches the frozen moment. Hooded figures, tensing, crouching, one trying to dive clear. The next moment, the figures are gone. A portion of the street, too, replaced by a red-walled crater. Above, 1,000 shreds of fabric float down like blossom, like black snow, mingling with broken glass and dust pluming from cracks in the shattered walls of the nearby warehouse. Max watches, mesmerized, until she kicks him into action. As he gives the signal to his troops, she notices the blood trickling from his ear holes. Frowning, she lets the weapon slide back over her shoulder to hang from its strap and touches her own ears, relieved that her fingertips remain dry. She returns her attention to the street. The men around the gun are slowly getting up to their feet, but by the time they realize the threat, the usurper-kin are already on them. Outnumbered and outsized, the battle is short and unfair. Just the way Tough Call likes it. A thick finger is raised to the sky, and Max grunts in approval.
"They managed to catch one alive."
"I'm impressed." The usurper-kin shows her a row of wide, blunt teeth.
"Yeah, they're getting better."
She jumps onto Max's back, gripping onto his neck with her arm and his chest with her legs. As soon as she is on, he clambers down the building, hands and feet sure in the dark. They go first to the recaptured gun, already being dismantled and packed away. 2 corpses lay together, the bodies wound-riddled, more reminiscent of sacks than men. A young usurper-kin eyes them suspiciously, almost hopeful they will give him an excuse to fire again.
"Good work, kids," says Max. "Let's see the live one."
A hooded figure is proffered, held in the air like a large doll. One shoulder droops, broken, the other seems only marginally better. Tough Call slaps Max on the shoulder.
By the time I get back, I want to know everything they know, who they work for, how big the operation is, how they got past our security. Everything.
Sure, boss. Where are you going?
To see what all the fuss was about. She beckons for 2 of the uniformed usurperkin to join her. Max's children move to flank her, taking position as naturally as him and his sister do. Pride swells in his chest as he turns back to the prisoner, flexing his fingers and feeling the knuckles complain.
Right, let's get this done. If I know the boss, we haven't got long.
The kid blinks. He is laying on his side. Something bad has happened. A terrible noise followed by the urge to fall over. Dark eyes dare to open and a small head lifts up, cautious. Everything seems fine now. He stands quickly, blinking against the dust, coughing. He sees his kind mother slumped in a pile of rubble, clutching at an injured thigh. He sees the one coloured like a giant plum quivering alongside, and, by the broken doorway, the other one, part buried. She lies very still, helpless, one arm jutting from the rubble. The kid trots over to her, watching carefully. The arm does not move. The kid turns 180 degrees and one leg kicks out, hoofs sparking against an armoured shoulder. There is a drowsy groan, but nothing more. He kicks it again, and the hand reaches for him. Skipping away lightly, he snorts in satisfaction. Helpless, the hand becomes a fist that shakes at empty air. From outside, a voice calls out. "My name is Tough Call. I run this city. The people that attacked you are done. What happens next is up to you. If you come out, we can talk. Might even be we can come to an arrangement, save ourselves any more bloodshed. If you stay in there, that'll put me in a difficult spot. It's late, I'm tired, and to be honest, I'd rather lose what's left of the warehouse you're in than many more of my people. So what's it to be?" The kid yawns. The woman's voice is far away and doesn't sound angry. Nothing for him to worry about. He sniffs around for some food. His good mother's face is twisted to one side, staring at the big eye in the sword on her shoulder. Both eye and human seem fixated on each other, allowing the kid to nose in pockets without interruption. He hears the voice outside talking again, but ignores it, having found something that bears further investigation. "I appreciate you might be wondering if you can trust me. Truth is, I can blow you up any time I want. It's not nice, but that's the way it is. So you got nothing to lose in coming out. And, for what it's worth, I'd much rather we do things a civilized way." The kid is almost there. He worms his snout deeper into the pocket and nips. Vesper screams, attention suddenly very much in the present. She swats at the kid, who scampers away wearing a hurt expression. The girl is too busy to notice, peering down the front of her trousers with a troubled expression. At her shoulders, an eye closes. Vesper breathes a sigh of relief and lets go of her waistband, but relief is short-lived. "Duet?" she asks quietly. "Duet?" The nav pack is pulled from her pocket, switched to torch mode. The light swings across the broken room, first illuminating Bruce's prone body, then Duet's buried one. She realizes the harmonized is speaking, but the words are too muffled to make out. From outside, the voice speaks again. "This is your last chance to do things peacefully. I hope you're going to take it." "What?" says Vesper, rushing to the side of the doorway. "Who are you?" "As I said, my name is Tough Call, and I want to talk." "Tough Call?
The leader of the rebels? That's the one. Though I haven't been a rebel for more than a decade now. My uncle told me about you. He was a rebel too.
The girl steps out into the doorway, immediately picked out by 3 white lights. She holds up a hand to shield her face, squinting through her fingers.
My friends are hurt. They need help.
Come out and stand aside and keep your hands where we can see them. My marshals will see to your friends. Vesper complies, relieved tears pricking in the corners of her eyes.
Thank you.
Tough Call walks over, a strange look on her face. We'll do the pleasantries later. Right now, I got a question that you better have a good answer to.
What's that?
Your uncle. You said he was a rebel.
That's right. I think he misses you.
Huh. You sure that's true? Not many rebels left Verdigris on good terms. You better hope your uncle was the exception. What was his name?
Harm.
Chapter 19. A shielded essence lamp is the only light in the room. Little Ez holds it up, casting a pale glow across the oversized bed. The covers are expensive, a strange mix of stripes and spots cut from the hide of a creature so bizarre and rare some consider it a myth. Little Ez hates the covers. They are a painful reminder of how much money his father is willing to spend on things he loves. Usually they would swell over a sleeping body. Tonight they are smooth, flat. The bed is unoccupied. The room also. He begins to search. The room is packed with furniture and curios picked for resale value over aesthetics. Together they clash, a painful, mismatched assembly. Little Ez shakes his head and keeps going. Under a statue of a triple-breasted man, he finds it. A battered box hidden within the base. The box is guarded with a combination lock, the key to which is a number. Little Ez tries several. His father's age, both official, unofficial, and in combination, the year of his birth, last year's profit, and many more. When he gets the right one, he curses himself for a fool. It is the number of lovers his father claims to have. The box opens on well-oiled hinges. Inside is a gemstone the colour of milk, 3 small brain chips that have been carefully cleaned, and a platinum coin that parts the light of the essence lamp with a glow of its own. He hesitates before taking them. He doesn't mean to pause, but before he can continue, a whisper of guilt makes itself known. Little Ez considers closing the box and walking away. Then he considers how much these treasures might be worth, and how little of his family's vast wealth ever finds its way into his hands. He considers that it is only a matter of time before he owns these things anyway, and so it is not really theft, more premature ownership. The guilt is swiftly stamped out, the box tucked under his arm. As he makes his way through the house, he hears the bolts in the front door sliding back, one by one, and voices he knows all too well. With a muffled curse, he closes the shutters on the lamp and dives behind a collection of second-hand robes once worn by the uncivil's cultists.
Why else would a rat be fleeing? Because Snare is thinking that the city is finished, and Snare is probably not the only one, yes? Tough Call may catch him, but she will not catch them all.
2 silhouettes fill the doorway with ease, one impressively wide, the other more generally impressive. Ez's gaze comes to rest on the disturbed pile of robes. He frowns.
And here we are. Thank you for the escort, Marshal Maxey, but as you can see, Ez's home has many locks. He is safe now.
I'm not done with you,
the usurperkin growls.
We've got things to discuss.
The business or the pleasure? There is a twinkle in your eye that is flattering, but even Eze cannot handle so much woman. It would be his death.
The door is shut firmly.
My eyes don't twinkle.
Good. That is good. I take it from the look on your biceps that this cannot wait until morning.
It can't.
The usual, then? Lucky for you, my giant friend, Eze is well stocked.
I think I'll be taking double this time, and make sure it's the good leaf.
And why do you think this?
Because if you tell me where the malice is, I won't tell the boss about your little games.
Perhaps it is late, or perhaps it is the speed at which you speak. Eze is confused.
Jolie let the malice into the city tonight. She was paid to do it by your son.
You are sure? There are many handsome young men in the city, and Jolie is not, how to say, the quickest of fish.
I'm sure.
If it truly is Eze's son, he will have an explanation.
His eyes settle briefly on the pile of robes badly in need of sorting and narrow.
Perhaps even a good one.
He'd better. 'Cause if I find out you're playing me...
Yes, bones will be crunching, blood will be dancing, Eze knows. Let us cross that when we're coming to it. For now, we will pay a visit to my boy and be hearing his explanation together. Eze hides nothing from his friend Marshal Maxey.
Where is he?
At this hour, he should be dreaming the dreams of the innocent. Sadly, he is neither dreaming nor innocent.
What?
Eze sighs, points.
He's hiding over there.
Right.
Maxey pounds across the room to where little Ez cowers. Eze follows, his customary smile slipping away. The bodies have been cleared. Bruce rushed off for emergency treatment, and Duet has been dug out. She and the kid exchange black looks behind Vesper's back. In place of the door stands Max, waiting patiently for an opening in the conversation. Vesper's voice rises and falls, enthusiastic, her arms waving while Tough Call nods, asking questions from time to time. And then this monster came, with 2 heads and huge claws, and Duet was fighting it, but her sword couldn't even break its scales, and in the end I distracted it with some food and we ran away. And then we walked and walked forever until we got to Verdigris, and that's when little Ez met us at the gates, and he brought us here. I suppose you know the rest. Tough Call pinches the bridge of her nose. That's quite a story. It is. I probably missed things out. You didn't, mutters Duet. A tired smirk appears on Tough Call's face. I'm glad your Uncle Harm found a way to be happy. And your father. Did you know I met him as well? He doesn't like talking about the past. I don't remember him liking to talk much at all. Vesper smiles. That's true too. Well, he and I didn't meet in the best of circumstances, which is a shame. He seemed like a good man. She looks at Vesper and pauses until she meets her gaze. I'm going to come right out and ask, is that the malice you're carrying? Yes. Thought so. Is it true what they say about it? What do they say? That the sword is alive? That it's part of the 7? Well, says Vesper, screwing up her face in thought. I think so. It's definitely alive. It talks to me sometimes, not like we're talking right now, but I don't know how to explain it. Like it's talking into my heart.
Tough Call gives the sleeping sword a wary glance. There was a time when the Seven walked the Empire, long before we were born. Apparently, they used to work miracles. You ever hear about that? Vesper and Duet nod. Good. Because we've both got problems right now, and I'm hoping we can help each other out. I'd like that, replies Vesper. What do you need? My people are sick. A plague we haven't seen before. It goes for the untainted first, but everyone except the half-breeds are susceptible. I was hoping you might take a look at one of them, and, if you could, ask that sword of yours to help him. I can't promise the sword will help, but I can try. That's all I can ask. We're in sore need of good news. For my part, I'll try and do better by you than I did for your father. Tomorrow, the south gates will be open so that we can trade with outsiders. Be good if we could slip you out then, before word gets round of you being here. Behind Duet's visor, an eyebrow raises. Bit late for that. Like I said, that problem's been taken care of. Right, Max? The Usurperkin's nod is a little late.
Right, boss.
But Snare was just the start. There's a lot of desperate folks out there, and the first is offering big for your heads. Up till now we've had no trouble with the nomads, but that could change quicker than the wind, and we're in no shape to weather a storm. Can you give us supplies? Asks Vesper. Reckon I can stretch to that. Tough Call offers her hand. Have we got a deal? Vesper takes it eagerly. Good. Now, let's see about introducing you to our first patient. They march down dim streets, Usurperkin screening off the harmonized girl and her goat from onlookers with bulk alone. Ahead of them, Tough Call and Max converse unhappily. So, Snare stole the guns, sold us out.
Looks that way, boss. You want me to go get him?
No. He knows the tunnels even better than we do. It'd be a nightmare trying to sniff him out. Besides, I need you up here. But as soon as he pops his head up again, I want it brought straight to me.
Sure, boss.
He sniffs and wipes his nose with the back of his hand. You okay?
Yeah. I just miss Tina.
She reaches up for his shoulder and gives a long squeeze. Ain't that the truth? Now secure those tears, Max, or you'll set us all off. They arrive at a set of 3 dwellings, piled one on top of the other, a messy sandwich of architecture. The walls of the lower and middle properties bend slightly under the strain of their own weight. Metal struts have been bolted to the outside for support, digging into the rock like the belt of an overweight giant. Original stairs have fallen away long ago, replaced by ladders riveted flush to the walls. Each of the 3 doors is marked with a circle with a dot in its centre, the fresh paint glistening in the pale light. Tough Call stops and points. Your patient is in the middle house. His name is Dr. Grains. You're not coming in with us? That house is infected. I'm not going near it. My advice would be to leave your friend here, too. Duet shakes her head. Not going to happen. But, begins Vesper, turning to face the harmonized, not going to happen. The ladders creak as they climb. Up close, a kind of fungus can be seen winding its way around the rungs, a second skin spreading slowly. The kid waits at the bottom of the ladder, watching them without expression. As soon as they reach the top, he begins to nibble experimentally at patches on the walls. Time has warped the door, and Duet has to push hard to get it to open. Inside, the air is musty and sweet. Her visor lights up the space. The house has been divided into quarters, each section turned to a different purpose. The one Vesper and Duet stand in is part storage, part kennel. Veins of mould line the walls, their blue vibrant against fading paintwork, and a row of battered shoes lined alongside, roguish. A pack of tame handlings huddle in one corner, gibbering, rubbing digits together in an approximation of human nerves. Vesper shivers and moves on quickly, Duet at her back, the harmonized sword hanging loosely from one hand. The next section is full of slides, meticulously labelled and organised, arranged on row after row of tiny shelves. The third section contains a man wrapped in a sweat-drenched sheet. Fever colours his cheeks, and a rash twists across his exposed chest, changing shape before their eyes, the patterns never quite recognisable. The man's eyes are closed, most of his eyelashes having already fallen away to land on sticky cheeks. Only his chest moves, jerking up and down, erratic. Vesper hefts the sword from her shoulder and holds it out over the man, hilt first. An eye opens, flicking over the man, and then straining to turn, silvered wings flapping angrily. Vesper feels the movement, aids it, raising the weapon in her hands until an eye meets hers. There is a long pause, then Vesper sighs, dropping her gaze.
"What is it?"
whispers Duet. I think the sword wants to be drawn.
"Then draw it."
But I'm scared.
"So?"
Vesper nods. You're right. She forces herself to look up again, finds an eye looking back. Okay, she murmurs. Here we go. She rests the sword on the ground, holding the sheath in one hand, reaching for the hilt with the other. The sword begins to hum softly, its gaze growing in intensity. Vesper's fingers pause, trembling. She takes another breath, bites her lip, reaches, and changes her mind. Instead of taking the hilt, she rests her right hand under one of the wings, bringing her left up under the other. They curl forward over her fingers, hooking fast. Vesper lifts, and the sheath slides away, the noise of its falling masked by the vibration of triumphant steel. In the other room, handlings skitter, their gibbers rising in pitch as they strain against their tethers. Duet glances warily in their direction, but stays close to her charge. Meanwhile, setting the sword's point on the floor and tilting the hilt forward, Vesper is able to bring the man back into its line of sight. Carefully, she sweeps it back and forth. Between the blade and the man's body, the air sparks blue. Sweat evaporates, and the rash turns livid. The man begins to twitch and moan. Duet sheathes her weapon, stepping quickly around to press down on the man's shoulders. The rash is smoking now, burning under the sword's terrible scrutiny. Vesper struggles to hold the sword steady, gritting her teeth and willing trembling muscles to stay strong. Humming builds to a single note, pure and long. It passes through skin and bone, cleansing, changing. And then it is done. Duet steps back, and all three watch, expectant, daring to hope. The man's eyes open, tired but focused. Hello? What are you doing in my... He sits up suddenly.
"Hell and spawn shit!"
Despite his ordeal, the man is quick to slide off the bed onto his knees, head bowed.
By which I mean Garth Grains, your servant.
Vesper embraces the sword, pressing her cheek against the flat of the blade.
You did it! You cured him! Thank you!
An eye widens and silvered wings flick straight in surprise, quivering with tension. After a pause, they move to touch her shoulders, resting there. 1,105 years ago. Few people come to the old quarry now, and those that do come for the wrong reasons. She warns them to go home, but they insist on staying, eager to master the power she possesses. Masasi kills them, one by one. She doesn't mean to, doesn't even want to. Each time she hopes she will get it right, that her enhancements will be stable. They aren't. Essence disintegrates beneath her silver fingers, leaving empty skin and fresh nightmares. Meanwhile, the babies grow. Motherhood does not come naturally to Masasi. She resents their neediness, their noise, their stupidity. It is tempting to alter them, to enforce their obedience, but she worries that such an intervention would weaken their spirits and prevent future growth. Instead, she resorts to reason and raising her voice, more the latter than the former. Every day she takes them to the place where the world distorts and tests them for sensitivity. Every day they fail. Her own studies verge on the obsessive. When away from the distortion, she worries some critical change will be missed. Checking the anomaly 3 times a day quickly becomes 4, then 5, and worrying constantly in the times between. If there is ever an odd noise, an unexpected change in the weather, even a little indigestion, she immediately rushes outside. Soon the visits become ritualized. They begin with a cursory study, followed by a detailed examination involving careful measurements, painstakingly noted. A third check of both the site and the notes is done to minimize the chance of error, followed by a final check, just to be sure. If at any point in the process she loses concentration, she forces herself to start the whole thing again. Over time, the anomaly shifts, growing in almost imperceptible increments, shrinking some days, expanding others, an alien tide wearing on her shores, on her mind. By their 10th year, the children are studious, focused, and very careful not to upset their carer. Despite their best efforts, they cannot make Masasi smile, for they are fundamentally disappointing. Though they try, they cannot understand even half of what she talks about, and are of little use to her. Sleep becomes a stranger to Masasi, brushing past at odd times in the day, leaving before any true rest can be had. She moves a chair outside, spends increasing amounts of time sitting in it. Fatigue jumbles memory, sending her back and forth from the anomaly. Often she drifts off part-way through a check, restarting and restarting until despairing tears roll down her cheeks. A hand pulls her from her dreams, gently tugging at her sleeve. She looks up, recognizes one of her charges, Piece 11, looking excited. What? I seen it. Seen what? Piece 11 can barely contain herself, jumping up and clapping hands against thighs. Smoke! Masasi sits up, frowning. Where? In the special place. She runs outside to find the other children there, clustered around the worn earth, clustered around the anomaly. Pushing past them, she sees it, a thin wisp, pale enough to see through, probing into the world. The light of the sun burns at it, shrinking its potential, but still it comes on, fighting to push fully through into the world.
Staring at it is uncomfortable, the intruder paradoxical, both alien and familiar, repellent yet mesmerizing. For the first time it becomes aware of the onlookers, stretching towards the nearest, quiet 3. The boy gasps as the wisp draws nearer, not realizing that opening his mouth, opening anything, is a fatal mistake. Masashi knows. She can read the wisp as easily as she reads everyone else. Stepping towards it, her fingers spread and the iris in her palm opens. Quiet 3 giggles as the wisp touches his upper lip. The sensation is hot, cold, sweet pain, and the boy inhales sharply, drawing the wisp inside in one quick gulp. Essences mix badly within Quiet 3. The slower-moving human essence discolouring and cracking, the wisp of alienness boiling around it, burning itself out. Masashi clamps her hand over Quiet 3's mouth, letting her essence reach within. She wraps the writhing energies in bands of glowing silver, one after another, spinning a net around the whole sorry mess. When every inch has been covered, the seal perfect, she squeezes, burning and crushing until nothing is left. The body of Quiet 3 falls to the floor, reminiscent of so many others. While the children back away, Masashi turns to what was an anomaly, what is now a breach, a tiny perforation in the fabric of reality. She wraps her hand around it, squeezing it tight, sealing it with fire and will. The breach pushes against her, fed by forces from another place. It is like a mouth, keen to open, hungry after its first taste of food. Around it, Masashi forms a muzzle, burning it into place. Sweating, weak, she steps back to survey her work. The fix is quick and dirty, a temporary solution. But for the first time in a long time, she feels a kind of peace. The waiting is over, and now she sees the problem in a new light. It is time to go back to her roots. She forgets trying to be a master or a mother and focuses on what she knows, becoming an engineer once more. She turns towards the children, who stare at her with frightened eyes. "You saw it?" They don't need to say anything. She sees the answer fear written in their true faces. "Good. Then you will be my eyes, and you will watch for more while I work." Piece 11 raises a shaky hand. "What about him?" The girl indicates the body of Quiet 3. Masashi takes a shuddering breath. She had already blanked his death from her memory. The sudden reminder brings back the others, a collage of slack faces superimposed over her vision of the present. She sways under their weight, then swallows them down with a flash of anger. "Put him with the rest. Get Quiet 5 to help you." She looks away, forcing her attention to the present. "Control 10, get my kit and meet me in the workshop. The rest of you stay here. I don't care when you sleep, so long as there are always eyes on the breach." She walks away, designs already forming in her mind. The breach is reframed. Not a thing to be feared, not an enemy to be fought. Just another problem to be solved. Chapter 20. The kid sleeps next to Vesper on the bed. Both flop, completely relaxed, full bellies poking up the sheets. Next to them, the sword rests, equally peaceful.
Although the room is designed for one, its opulence is such that they all fit easily. Duet sits by the door, alternately looking from the small yellow pill in one hand to her visor in the other. Her lips move from time to time, shaping half a conversation. The quiet hours are always the hardest. She lifts the pill to her mouth, drawing out the moment. Despite rationing, they are running out. The pill's outer shell yields between her teeth, and she chews, wishing for 1,000th time that they still had the med gun. "What?" she says to the visor. The visor says nothing. "It's for the pain. I have to stay focused for the mission." The visor says nothing. "I wouldn't need them if I was..." She stops, tilting her head to listen. Yes, there is definitely someone outside the door. Duet puts on her visor and inches her sword free, moving slowly to minimize the sound. Once ready, she raises the weapon and tears the door open. A man kneels in the doorway, head down, exposing a neck covered in curly grey hairs. Behind him are a dozen or so others, also kneeling. Their voices whisper, uncertain, feeling their way around the strange words. Duet recognizes them at once. The litany of the winged eye. She halts her blade above the man's neck, twists the edge away, and sheathes it. "Too close," she mutters. The man looks up, unaware of how near he has come to death. "I'm sorry if we disturbed you. I'm Garth Grains, Senior Doctor of Verdigris, remember?" "I remember." "We were waiting for the bearer to wake up. We wanted to thank her and the winged eye. Actually, I was hoping to talk to her." "Hasn't she done enough for one night?" "Oh, yes, most certainly she has. We're happy to wait." "She's asleep." "Yes, I can imagine. As I said, we're happy to wait." "Good for you." She shuts the door and sits back down. Comfort isn't easy to find, however. The soft voices on the other side of the door hard to shut out completely. A long and winding yawn comes from the bed, followed by a voice heavy with sleep. "What was that?" "Nothing. Go back to sleep." "Were you talking?" "Yes." "Who with?" "Nobody." "You were talking to yourself again." Duet scowls. "What do you mean, again?" "You do that sometimes." "No, I don't." Vesper props herself up on her shoulders. "Yes, you do. You did it at Wonderland, and you did it on the way here." "You're imagining things." "No, I'm not." "If you must know, I was talking to that doctor you cured." "You were?" "Yes. He wants to see you, but I told him you were asleep." "Is that him outside?" She tilts her head again, waits, then nods. "Okay, we'd better hear him out." "But you need your rest." "I'm awake now, and anyway, I won't be able to sleep because I'm wondering what he's going to say." Duet mutters something, then opens the door. "Just you," she says to the surprised doctor. "The rest have to wait outside." He comes in quickly, expressing repeated gratitude, and kneels by the bed. "Hello," says Vesper. "Yes," he replies, head bobbing, unsure whether he should look at Vesper directly.
What you and the Winged Eye have done for us tonight goes beyond our ability to express, but I wish to try.
He clears his throat.
On behalf of myself and my fellow victims, we want to offer our gratitude and our loyalty.
Vesper's smile is natural. Thank you.
The thing is, well, I don't wish to sound irreverent, but there are many others in the city who are sick. The plague seems to spread regardless of our quarantine, but they are just as deserving of care as I was.
He looks at the sword, resting in the corner, and swallows.
Please don't mistake my request for irreverence. I know my place and am entirely at your mercy.
How many people are there?
In truth, I'm not sure. A few hundred at least. Of course, some of them may be dead by now, and there are new cases reported all the time. It's hard to keep track.
Before Vesper can answer, Duet steps in. We're not planning to stay.
Of course. I understand.
Dr. Grains allows himself to be escorted out, but manages to give one last pleading look over Duet's shoulder before the door shuts him firmly out of sight. Vesper flops onto her back, and Duet flops back into her chair. The kid snores. Duet rests her head against the wall. The pill has taken the edge off her cravings, smoothing tension from her shoulders. It also gives her the urge to giggle. Attempts to restrain it result in a noise somewhere between cough and snort. When it has passed, she closes her eyes, inviting sleep to come at last. The moment is ruined by Vesper's voice. I think we should stay another day. She ignores Duet's groan and continues. I can't forget what I've seen. These people, they're dying. We might be their only chance. What about the first? You can't help anyone if you're dead. I know it's a risk, but we can't just turn our backs on a whole city. We have a mission, remember? We are here to serve the Seven. But maybe this is the mission! In her sudden enthusiasm, Vesper is carried onto her feet, disturbing the kid, who kicks out randomly, punishing empty air. This is the first time since I picked up the sword that I felt like I'm doing the right thing. Our mission objective is at the breach. That's what Genna said, but he didn't know. Not for sure. Nor do you. No. Her fists clench at her sides. But there are things going on right here that we have to do something about. We have to. This place is beyond saving. Look at it. They have mutants as marshals. There are tainted creatures in the gutters. No wonder there's a plague. We should get out of here while we can. I don't like it here either. Those handlings are horrible and the usurperkin scare me. But they need me, and I can't just abandon them. I can't. Look, if the sword wants us to move on, then we can go. But I have to at least try. Just one more day, I promise. If you do this, Tough Call won't be able to cover it up. Everyone will know you're here. That's why I'll need you to protect me. Duet raises her visor to rub at tired eyes. This is a mistake. Vesper starts pulling on her clothes. Thanks, Duet. I couldn't do this without you. She grabs her coat and the sword, lifting it carefully by the strap. You're going now? You heard what Dr. Grains said. People are dying. What choice do we have? Duet has some ideas, but she keeps them to herself, closing her visor and following the young girl out of the room. The kid watches them go, snorts in irritation, and then goes back to sleep. Samael marches across the blasted lands, wobbling slightly with every other step. He carries Jem in his arms, a shrunken, shivering thing. He considers him as he travels, leaving Scout to watch the barren landscape for him. Why does the man shiver so? He knows there was a time when his body did such things, though the sensations are increasingly hard to remember. Perhaps Jem is dying. The thought bothers him. It is a vicious cycle. The more he thinks, the more troubled he becomes, and the more troubled he becomes, the more he thinks. Perhaps Jem is cold or hungry. Perhaps he is afraid. Can people be afraid in their sleep? Samael thinks so, sure that he has experienced such things long ago, in his other life. Whatever the cause, he is sure the man will die if not tended to. He sends Scout off in search of food and sits by a trio of weather-scarred monoliths. Jem has little in the way of clothing or fat to keep him warm, and yet heat radiates from a swollen ankle, the veins throbbing around a set of bite marks, black and scabbing over. Samael touches the injury, and Jem jolts, agitated, but does not wake. Through the contact, he is able to learn more. A slight infernal essence spreads slowly through Jem's system, reminiscent of Gutterface. There is no sentience there, just a weak and spiteful poison, corrupting some cells, killing others. He makes a drawing motion with his hand, pulling it free from the skin and catching something ephemeral with his fingertips. Inside Jem's body, the foreign essence becomes sluggish, pauses, then, slowly at first, it begins to be pulled back towards the wound. The tail of it stretches from the man's ankle to spin beneath Samael's palm, faster and faster, reeling itself into a tight black ball of spite. Samael closes his hand, squeezing until his fist shakes. When he opens his hand again, it is empty. Not long after, Scout returns, happy jaws holding a fresh kill. Bright blood splashes as the dog spawn sets down its prize and begins to eat. With a groan, Jem wakes. Eyelids snap back, revealing eyes rolled right up in their sockets. They close and open several times before sense catches up. He takes in the lack of sights and fixates quickly on the fresh meat. Scout has already torn open the victim's colourful pelt, snout buried in the juicy innards. Jem approaches carefully on hands and knees, skinny and unsteady, swaying like a newborn calf. As he pulls at a string of meat, Scout growls and he yelps, falling back onto his bottom. Samael lets his displeasure flow through their link, and the growls turn quickly to sorry whimpers. He issues a silent command, and Scout's head emerges from the gore, tail dropping. Samael nods, and Scout whines one last time, tearing off a chunk and approaching Jem on his belly. Jem stays very still as Scout leans to drop the meat in his lap. Never taking his eyes off the dog spawn, he snatches up the offering and begins nibbling at it with small, sharp teeth. Satisfied, Samael releases Scout to return to his own feast. When they are done, Scout settles next to Jem and closes his eyes. At first, the proximity of the dog spawn makes him rigid with fear, but a combination of exhaustion and warmth lull him swiftly into a deep sleep. For a time, Samael sits, vicariously enjoying the sensations of a full belly. Periodically, he checks the road behind them, seeing nothing but the native spawns going about their daily business. He does not understand this new turn of events, or where they might lead, but for the first time since his creator's death, he is content. Clouds hang heavy in a breathless sky, creating an illusion of peace as the suns continue their swirling dance overhead. With surprise, he realizes Jem is awake and watching him. It occurs to him that he should probably speak, but old resistances die hard. There is nothing he wants to say. Perhaps, he hopes, Jem prefers silence as well.
Where are we?
Perhaps not.
The blasted lands.
Questions come quickly on the heels of his answers. Where are you going?
North.
Why?
To find the Malice.
What's the Malice? What's going to happen to me?
Part of the 7.
And what's going to happen to me?
I don't know.
There is a brief pause in the flurry. Then,
are there more of you? Are the knights coming to save New Horizon?
No. I don't know.
How come you have a dog spawn for a pet? I thought only handlers could control them.
I don't...
And don't say you don't know.
I wanted it.
Jem looks at Samael, evaluating.
Are you going to take me north too?
Yes. Unless you want to go home.
I haven't got a home.
His voice becomes flat.
I haven't got anything.
I understand.
A sudden thought makes him pale.
Those demons, the demagogue, are they still coming after us?
Yes.
And that trick with your toe, did it work?
Yes.
But they're still coming, aren't they?
Yes.
Then we need to go, right now.
He stands up and immediately regrets it, a wave of nausea returning him to the ground.
Damn.
Samael gets up, towering over the man.
I can carry you.
I think you'll have to.
Jem is light in his arms, barely more than a skeleton. Scout wakes with a yawn and joins them, tail waving from side to side as they set off.
What happens when we find the Malice?
We make it help us.
Are all the knights like you?
No.
I believe you. I think you're one of the good ones.
Samael does not know what to say to that.
I can see you're different, Jem continues. You may not look exactly like the knights in the stories my mother used to tell, but at least you act like one. That's enough for me. Will you tell me your name?
Samael.
He reaches out, grabbing the half-breed by his upper arm.
Thank you for saving me, Sir Samael.
A new flag flies from one of Verdegree's towers, fresh and colourful against worn stone. The design is simple, a circle with a dot in its centre, with a stylised wing on either side. The Empire's sign has not been seen in the city for many years, abandoned during the time of the usurper and the uncivil, and never missed. Until now. Alone it flutters, clashing with the more populous symbols of Verdegree's independence. Max frowns up at it as he escorts Vesper to the outer doors of the council chambers. The girl's shoulders droop with fatigue, their curve a mirror for the smile, still strong, on her face. Duet stays close, a physical barrier between Vesper and the growing troop of people following them. Led by Dr. Grains, the group comprises a wide variety of citizens, united in health and a sudden love of the Empire, their demeanours full of awe and reverence, except when they turn towards Max. When that happens, pupils contract and whispers are exchanged, suspicious and charged with menace. Usurperkin have always struggled for acceptance here, and every service they have done for the city is weighed against a host of accidents and past mistakes. That Max and his kin are unaffected by the plague is just one more reason to bear a grudge. Just like its people, the council chambers have survived many masters, a checkered history hinted at by walls repainted in colours, in blood, in living tissue, then scraped clean again, stripped back to the original stone. Simple, the way Tough Call likes it. At Max's nod, the Usurperkin guards open the way. Vesper turns and waves goodbye to the group, delighted at the way their faces brighten, and goes inside, Max, Duet, and Dr. Grains following. It is not long before they arrive at the meeting room. Tough Call and Cavane stand when they enter. "Welcome back, Dr. Grains." The doctor smiles and moves to take his usual seat at the table, while Max moves to flank Tough Call. "Please," Tough Call says to Vesper, "rest your legs. From what I hear, you've earned it." Vesper takes off the sword, leans it against the table with the utmost care, as one might a sleeping baby, and flops gratefully into one of the empty chairs. After a moment's thought, Duet sits next to her. "How are you feeling, Doctor?" asks Tough Call.
"Never better. I've been making time to speak to everyone who has been blessed by the Seven's grace. The success rate is excellent, with no detrimental side effects for any of the survivors."
Tough Call's frown is made of many complexities. Not everyone survived the process? Dr. Grains and Vesper exchange a look, and the girl's smile fades noticeably.
"Unfortunately, we couldn't get to everyone in time, and while victims who are also tainted have a slower progression, they have a harder time being in the presence of the Seven. However, those that survived have been cured of the taint completely."
"Well," says Tough Call, "Verdigris thanks you, Vesper. And you." She turns to the sword and inclines her head, painfully aware of the way it has started to glare at Max. "I've prepared all of the things Duet asked for, true to my word. They're good to go as soon as you are." Duet stands up. "Good."
"Hold on,"
says Dr. Grains, also standing.
"You can't possibly leave now."
"We can," replies Duet. "You can watch us, if you like."
"But we've only helped a tiny fraction of the city. If you go now, the good work will be undone. Don't you see? The plague continues to spread. All of our attempts to contain it have failed, and by the time I have isolated its transmission vectors, it may well be too late. The Seven's intervention is the only thing that is certain to save us."
Tough Call waves Grains back to his seat. "They have their own problems, Doctor, and they've done what they can." Cavane raises a hand. It is ignored. "Besides, we had an agreement, and I intend to do right by it." Vesper reflects on what she has seen. The tensions in the city, the grief, the constant eyes on her, hopeful, desperate. "Well," she murmurs, "maybe we could—" Duet shakes her head. Cavane clears her throat. Tough Call sighs. "What is it?" "If you recall, I mentioned that we were having bug spawn problems. It's very difficult to persuade my people to go out to protect the crop pods when we're afraid it may be the bugs themselves transmitting the plague, not to mention that these things are frightfully large up close. I'm sure that if the bearer were to pay a visit, it would scare them off in no time. Even if their leaving were only temporary, it would allow us to set up countermeasures." She pauses, hand raised to stave off interruptions. "It is my considered opinion that such action is essential to the long-term survival of the city." "I see. But these are our problems, and the deal stands."
She looks at Vesper. We'd be mighty grateful if you decided to stay, but I understand if you have to leave. Well, maybe we could stay a little longer, to help with the crop pods and to contain the plague long enough for you to find a workable cure. Duet leans close to her ear. What about the mission? Saving people is our mission. I told you, and I told you, Vesper hisses over her. This matters. I have to help. She thinks of the knights and their broken swords, of those that died to protect her. She has to make their sacrifice count, has to do something, anything, to make what she has seen better. Duet folds her arms. What about the first? The first isn't here. This plague is. We have a duty to these people. She turns away from Duet, looking at the others, lifting her chin. We'll stay. A faint mantle of gold surrounds the mountains, the red sun already gone. Uniformed usurperkin work hard outside Verdegree's southern gates, making the most of the day's remains, packing boxes, moving crates, loading carts. In the middle of it all, Eze stands, conducting with a maestro's skill and a sailor's tongue. Maxie marches over to him, wiping sweat from her green brow.
Nearly done. Do you think they'll be happy with what you got?
Ha! A good merchant is never happy, but even the bad ones will know Eze made many good deals today. The caravans left full of Verdegree's finest wares, and we are returning with good money and many things much needed. We are nothing less than heroes, yes?
I don't feel like a hero.
A good sign. The worse you feel, the more heroic you are being. And that is why Eze is not making it a habit.
His beard swallows his smile suddenly, and he sighs.
Let us finish here and get back to our beds.
Right.
Maxie puts a huge hand on his shoulder, and Eze covers it with his own. The two part company. Maxie returning to her labouring offspring, Eze moving away to a single chest set well apart from the others and hidden behind a clump of rocks. He sighs a second time and releases the locking mechanism. With a pop, the lid opens, revealing a young man squished tight. A stiff neck twists, and a dirty face squints into the light. Father?
Regrettably so.
Little Ez manages to sit up in the chest. What's going on?
If only Eze had smacked you more when you were younger, then perhaps you would be less stupid.
He prods his son's chest with a merciless finger.
The only thing going today is you.
Going? Going where?
Go north, go south, go across the sea, go wherever you wish, but do not go back to Verdegree or Eze's house. You will never be going there again.
So, that's it? You're cutting me loose?
So ungrateful! So like your mother, may the sun shine softly on her corpse. You have betrayed your city, and a very unforgiving woman with lots of guns. You are lucky to have your head, and if you want to keep it, you will make hasty with your feet.
For once, little Ez has nothing to say, his eyes and face blank, slack with shock. Eze pushes a battered box into his son's hands.
And don't forget this. It is not so full of the treasures now, but a man who steals from family must be grateful for what little he is given. Yes.
Eze climbs onto the lead cart, unusually quiet.
Engines grumble and gears clank, bearing their full load home. Usurperkin grunt as they force the unpowered vehicles to follow. Maxi runs alongside, waving for attention. Eze gives it, reluctant.
Can this not wait?
She points into the distance.
Nope.
Eze frowns and looks. A lone figure approaches, well wrapped against the winds. They appear unarmed, unburdened.
What do you think?
Asks Maxi.
Eze thinks it would be wise to get to the gates before they do. Agreed.
Verdegree's walls are nearby, while the figure comes from far away. Yet each time Eze looks, they are closer. Horribly, impossibly closer. Then they are in front, cutting between the caravan and the city, forcing it to halt.
"Hello, friend!"
calls Eze, swiftly donning his merchant smile.
"Are you looking for a bargain? If so, you have the most wonderful timing."
The figure looks at Eze, looks deep.
"I am looking for something you do not have."
"A terrible shame. Oh well, good luck in your search. Forgive us, but we must be going, and goodbyes are always swift in Verdegree."
"I am the first, and I ask for permission to walk among your people."
"Such things are not possible. The city is closed to outsiders. It is not safe."
"For your kind. Verdegree's plague cannot touch me."
"Ah, of course. But no one of your inclinations is allowed beyond the gates."
"I am aware of your city's laws. They were made of history, of conflict with my kin. But the future is as fluid as your nature. Both will bend to my purpose."
"Ah, friend, your confidence is a thing of beauty."
"Name your price, man of masks, and I will meet it."
Before Maxi can move, the first adds,
"And yours, kin of my kin, and those of everyone here."
The group exchange glances, brows knit in thought. Consciences are wrestled with, thrown to the floor, kicked and beaten. A collective greed settles around them. For once, Eze would rather leave well alone, but he sees which way the wind is blowing.
"Continue, friend,"
he says, rubbing his hands together.
"You have our ears."
Chapter 21. Transparent pods are arranged in grid formation. Each one is 10 meters across and 4 meters wide, joined by a network of tubes to its neighbors. The original design is for a fully automated system, but it could not predict the sudden loss of essential parts, or of the specialized tools and skills required to install them. Sweat steps in to fill the gaps. Water is pumped manually through the irrigation systems, and harvesting arms are pulled along preset pathways by human hands. Less than half the pods function adequately, and even they do not always provide a full yield. Environmental controls were among the earliest features to fail, and the pods have been perforated to allow a basic level of airflow. A swarm of insects huddle around these holes, nibbling, burrowing. It is slow going, but the swarm works ceaselessly to widen the holes. When one tires, there are 2 more ready to take over. It is only a matter of time before the feast will be theirs. Cavane, Duet, and Vesper stand on the edge of the grid, staring cautiously up at the bugs. On her back,
The sword begins to shake, and an eye opens, staring the same way. It is devoid of caution. Cavain pales, making her tattoos appear harsher. As you can see, they're here in significant numbers. Vesper bites her lip. Do they attack people as well as plants? Only if disturbed. If you move close enough, they'll make their warning noises. It's an awful sound. Any closer after that, and they'll attack. I'm sure you'll understand if I observe your progress from inside. Go ahead. Cavain gives a slight inclination of her head, grateful, and scurries away. You can go too, Duet, if you want. It doesn't matter what I want. She snaps up a hand, palm out. I mean, I don't mean it that way. I'm going to stay. Good. Duet nods, but lips move behind her visor, berating. Vesper brings the sword in front of her, holding it under the wings. More practiced now, she is able to lift and sweep the sword sideways, sliding it clear of its sheath. Free, the humming of the sword vibrates through Vesper's fingers, travelling outward until it reaches the pods. Those insects nearest to the disturbance stop their attack, rubbing their front legs together, squeaking like a small chorus of violins, badly tuned. The whole swarm freezes, then turns in eerie unison to face them. What do you want me to do? Asks Vesper. In answer, silvered wings press against her hands, the sword straining to push itself towards them. She holds it as high as she can and takes a fortifying breath before walking forward. The pitch of the swarm deepens to a loud growl. Vesper pauses and the wings immediately tighten, squeezing, painful. Fear traps her, telling her to go forward, to run, to go forward, to run. The greater fear wins, and she takes a step towards the pods. Before she can take another one, the swarm explodes into action, darkening the sky with black bodies and latticework wings. It swirls around Vesper like a storm, tightening, closing. Her young arms tremble with fatigue, with fear, and the sword dips. She has a sudden longing to be held by other, stronger hands. Thoughts of home arise, tempting. Her own bed, the company of family, and a place where the greatest threat is a disgruntled goat. She closes her eyes against the tears, forces her arms up again. The buzzing of the swarm mixes badly with the humming of the sword, both sounds shaking her bones. She feels tiny shapes whipping by her face, scratching at exposed skin. Then the humming of the sword rises an octave, cutting over everything else. Blue light flashes through Vesper's eyelids like a skyline peppered in tiny white fireworks, detonating rapidly, impossible to count. The great storming growl disintegrates into a mess of whines, small and alone. Fire dances across the insects, leaping at random, leaving only husks behind. What is left of the swarm flees in clumps, like rags of paper caught on the breeze. An eye watches them, not closing until they have disappeared from sight. Peace descends. Only then does Vesper dare to look. Relief comes quickly, followed by collapse. Duet is too slow to catch her.
Stupid, she mutters to herself. You were always too slow. I would have been there.
She shakes her head.
But you weren't. You betrayed her. You betrayed us.
From the floor, Vesper smiles up at her, pretending not to have heard. We did it! She nods, helping the girl to stand again. Vesper sheathes the sword once more, thanks it, and puts it back over her shoulder. The action overbalances her, and she stumbles until Duet puts an arm round her waist. You need to rest. I will. And eat. I'm starving. But Duet, we did it! We helped them! Things are finally looking up. The nurse frowns down at Bruce's twitching body. I'm so glad you're back, Dr. Graines. To be honest, I'm out of my depth. What do we know about the patient? Male, half-breed, probably early 30s. Tainting shows primarily in skin discoloration. There's no major muscle augmentation and no additional limbs. My basic exams reveal no evidence of internal reconfiguration, but I really couldn't say for sure. He looks familiar. Have we seen him before? He works for Councilman Eze. Ah, yes. Yes, I remember now. What's his current condition? The bleeding is under control, but that's about it. Blood pressure is 170/50, pulse is 120. He has brief moments of consciousness with varying lucidity. He's received multiple gunshot wounds of a kind I've never treated before. The bullets passed straight through him, leaving clean points of entry and exit. But he seems to have had an allergic reaction to them. His muscles are locked tight all over. His temperature is currently 39 and climbing, and there is severe internal swelling. It's worst at the points of injury, but it's spreading. We've managed to preserve an airway for now, but unless we find a workable treatment soon, he won't make it. Thank you. You've done excellent work, as always. I can take it from here. Relieved, the nurse leaves. Dr. Graines walks around the body, nodding to himself. A tube extends from Bruce's mouth, running out of sight through a swollen throat. Dr. Graines pinches the end, sealing it. The sudden absence of air brings desperate consciousness. Bruce tries to move, but his muscles won't obey. He looks for help, desperate, making out the doctor through the slits of his puffy eyes. He tries to speak, tries to breathe, but nothing gets through the tube. Dr. Graines leans over him, still nodding. May the winged eye watch us, measure us, judge us. Vesper wakes to find a pair of dark eyes watching her, accusing. She sits up and stretches. Have you been shut in here all the time? She wrinkles her nose, catching a hint of something unsavoury. Oh, you have. Vesper looks over to the offending corner, and the kid has the good grace to look at the floor. I'm sorry. You must be hungry. Let's see about getting you some food. Absently, Vesper scratches at her face, only to feel unexpected pain. Surprised, she goes to one of the mirrored walls and examines herself. Tiny specks of smooth skin pepper one cheek and her left ear and temple, the remains of insect bites, burned white. Vesper studies them for a while, frowning, tilting her head to display the scars under different lights. As she does so, Duet opens the door and slips inside. What are you doing up? I can't sleep. There's too much to do. You need more rest. It isn't... Ugh! What's that smell? Vesper looks at the kid. The kid tries to look innocent. I'm okay. I think I'm ready to go back out. Duet turns to the kid and shakes her head. Well, you can't stay here now. But if you're going to use the sword again, why not use it properly? Vesper begins to gather her things. You mean like a knight? Yes. I'm not sure. It just doesn't feel right. What are you talking about? What doesn't feel right? It's not the sword. I think the sword wants me to use it, really quite a lot, but something stops me. Duet folds her arms, clearly not satisfied. Your father did it? I know. Maybe I will too, when I'm ready. Come on, she adds quickly. Let's get going. The three go out to enjoy more tolerable air. They pass through a quiet hallway lit by essence lamps. Each flame dips slightly as they pass, leaning away from the sleeping sword on Vesper's back. Although the main door is open, the way is blocked by the broad back of a usurperkin, shoulders thick with tension. They cannot see her face or the one she argues with, but their voices are clear enough. One of the plague victims has arrived in search of the cure. He is desperate enough to break containment and unwilling to take no for an answer. When the usurperkin tries to turn him back, words grow hostile. A crowd waits nearby, made up of people recently cured who wish to pay respects, and those with loved ones in sore need. By contrast to their sick companion, they present a measured, patient front. Neither the crowd or the arguing pair hear Vesper's polite hello.
Get out of my way, you big freak!
No, orders say you should be indoors.
Screw the orders! Screw you! I'm dying!
The bearer's resting. She'll see more of you later.
Excuse me, says Vesper, peering through the space under a large armpit. I'm right here. The victim sees her and pushes weakly at the wall-like chest.
Get out of my way, damn you!
Such efforts are laughable, doomed to failure, and yet the gesture and the aggressive feeling behind it stir something in the usurperkin, something violent.
Take your hands off me!
The request has the opposite effect, and the plague victim pushes all the harder, summoning up last reserves of strength. Please stop fighting, pleads Vesper.
Move!
Shouts the plague victim.
I warned you!
With casual strength, the usurperkin raises a hand, palm out, and shoves the human away. He flies back with surprising speed, feet moving like a crazed dancer trying to keep balance. Everyone watches, held rapt as the stumble becomes a trip, then a fall, fast and hard. The crack of skull on pavement is crisp, final. Vesper cries out and tries to push past, wanting to help the fallen, knowing it is probably too late. The kid retreats into the hallway. Already close to losing her temper, the usurperkin is unprepared for new surprises. She feels Vesper pushing her and reacts on instinct, grabbing at the girl and roaring, lifting her one-handed, lips pulled away from massive teeth. The crowd's shock gives way quickly to outrage, then anger. They have never fully trusted the marshals or their offspring, and now their suspicions, nurtured in the dark, dress up as facts.
Murderer!
Cries one.
They want to keep us locked up!
Shouts another, each one fueling the fire. And then another.
She's attacking the bearer!
Duet's sword is in her hand, but Vesper dangles between her and the usurperkin. She notes the gap between Vesper's feet and the possibility of striking the usurperkin's ankles and prepares herself. Vesper tries to speak, but cannot get the words past her collar, held tight in green fingers. At her shoulder, an eye opens, angry. The effect is immediate. The usurperkin roars and throws Vesper away from her. The girl sails through the air, back into the corridor, and Duet, who just has time to move her blade clear before becoming a human crash mat. For the harmonized, it is an unpleasant experience. There is a crunch and a clatter, a grunt, a curse, and a brief glint in the kid's eye. Too late, recognition dawns on the usurperkin's face, and rage drains away.
Sorry,
she begins.
I didn't realise it was you.
Vesper's reply is only discernible as a wheeze. And then the crowd grabs at the usurperkin. The doorway frames the violence, people jumping at the lone half-breed, kicking, punching, unable to bring her down. From the end of the street, reinforcements come, giant uniformed figures at full sprint, but the crowd continues its attack, and then a knife appears in someone's hand. Usurperkin blood flows, darker than untainted blood, but just as red.
"For the winged eye!"
shouts a man, holding the knife proudly aloft. Duet gets to her feet and moves to the door, shutting it and slamming the bolts home. Horrific sights are banished, but the noises continue on the other side, relentless. Finally, Vesper finds her voice.
"No!"
Duet scoops up her sword with one hand and the girl with another. "Let's find another way out."
"No," says
Vesper.
"We have to stop them."
"They're past listening," she replies, moving deeper into the building. "Come on." But Vesper doesn't follow. With frenzied hands, she unbolts the door and jumps outside. More people have arrived, and even the mighty usurperkin struggle to contain them.
"Stop!"
shouts Vesper.
"In the name of the Seven, stop!"
Most don't hear her over the sounds of melee, but a few do, and they add their voices to hers. A ripple of calm spreads out, those on the edges of the crowd kneeling before the watchful eye of the sword. In moments, everyone has stopped, even the usurperkin, though they do not join the others on the floor. The air remains tense, however, a storm of bloody fists and old hatreds ready to break. The moment grows, the pressure with it. Vesper swallows, licks her dry lips, and begins to speak. A girl's words drift across a crowded street. Bright yet unpolished, the speech is made fresh by its faltering earnestness.
"I don't know you very well. Most of you don't know me either. My uncle says it's much easier to hurt people when you don't know them. My name's Vesper, by the way. I probably should have started with that."
Like a gravity well, the gathering draws more and more people to it. Over half the listeners are kneeling, and of the rest, most at least appear respectful.
"The sickness in Verdigris is really bad. I mean, of course it is. But what I'm trying to say is that I know that a lot of you are suffering, and I'm doing my best to help. It's just there's so many of you, and, well, the sword, it's hard to use. I have to rest sometimes. I get tired. I know you're tired, too. The usurperkin are tired as well, I think. They're having to look after the city because they're the only ones the plague can't get. Sarah, that's the name of the usurperkin who was guarding my door. She didn't mean to attack me, or that poor man. She was actually trying to help. She made a mistake. I make mistakes all the time, and, well, we have to find a way to make the best of this, because if we don't, there'll be more fighting, and I won't be able to get to the people that really need us. I won't be able to make them better. I know this isn't fair, but please, I don't want there to be any more blood. I don't want you to hurt each other any more."
Heads nod, giving silent assent. The threat of violence remains, however. It hangs in the air, held at bay by the girl and the sword on her back, but not banished, moving through guarded glances and unvoiced thoughts. Dr. Graines arrives late and is forced to orbit the outer periphery of the crowd. At this distance, the girl's words can be heard, but not deciphered. A man peels away from the shadows to stand next to him,
wrapped in well-worn travelling clothes but carrying no weapons, no baggage. Dr. Graines might think this odd were his eyes not fixated on the speaker and his thoughts full of fervour. "That's a good child there," remarks the man. Graines pretends not to have heard. "Makes you wonder why the greenskins attacked her." "What did you say?" "Nasty it was. I saw the whole thing. Innocent man went to the bearer looking for help, and the greenskins killed him. When the girl tried to intervene, they went for her as well. Would have had her too if the 7 hadn't intervened. Bastards, the lot of them, if you ask me." "Tough call will see justice done." "Nah, they're as thick as thieves, her and the greenies. She'll cover it up like she always does. I heard she's as tainted as they are." Dr. Graines rounds on the man, all too aware that Tough Call stands only a few rows in front of them. "That's not true. She cut off her own arm rather than live as a half-breed." "Yeah, but she kept it, didn't she? They say it's still alive." "True," he replies, "but you don't know her. It isn't your place to judge." "That it ain't," concedes the man, backing away. "That it ain't." Graines turns back, his view blocked by Max and Maxie's hair spikes. He can't help but notice the way an eye glares, baleful, over the girl's shoulder, how one could trace a line exactly from it to the place where Tough Call and her giant lieutenant stand. Many thoughts form, most of them unpleasant. If he were to extend the imaginary line, take it past Tough Call, he would find it piercing the man he'd just talked to. But he doesn't. The girl's speech comes to an end, and the crowd bow their heads, murmuring a prayer to the winged eye and the 7. Though he does not know what was said, Graines eagerly adds his own voice in appreciation. 1102 years ago. Masasi does not know how to close the breach, but she knows that invaders are coming, in numbers too large for her to take on alone. She had hoped to find others like her, to teach the rest of humanity to see as she does so that they could work together against the threat. These hopes are gone. In their place is a cold logic. If she cannot find allies, then she can make an army. Even though they could not hurt it, her charges could see the infernal as it seeped into the world. All she needs do now is give them teeth. Weapons to use against the enemy. But normal weapons will do little to beings of pure essence. And so she makes swords. Special blades, infused with her own essence and shaped to cut along reality's lines. Each one is unique, holding a sliver of its creator's intent, refined over time. She designs simple triggers to unleash their power, activated through specific movements combined with song. Even these are too complex for most of her followers, and so she designs other, lesser weapons. Lances of fire fueled by echoes of rage, bullets tuned to the sound of fury, enough to handle the lesser horrors to come, to trouble the greater ones, perhaps. Soon she is forced to expand, her warehouses full of her creations, sparkling silver, humming with potential, deadly. There are many more than her 24 charges can hope to use. Leaving them to watch the breach, Masasi travels once more. Jump boots launching her skyward, glider holding her there. She finds the world much changed, and yet the same. The mechs are faster, the factories more numerous. Those unfortunate enough to be outdoors stoop low to avoid the heavy smog. She sees their true faces, shining through the filth, full of the same pettiness. For a while she circles above, wondering why she bothers, and what, exactly, is worth saving. In answer, visions of the breach swim up from her memory, clenching her stomach, locking her jaw. She descends to ground level, stepping around cleaner mechs, frantic in their futile efforts to control the ever-growing mess of an ever-growing population. Buildings line up in height order, where tall equals important, and size struggles to compensate for more profound deficiencies. Masasi strides towards the tallest, a soaring tower of gold and glass, its peak lost in the clouds. Doors open at her approach, and when the receptionist checks a second time, he finds that he does remember her, and that she does have an appointment. She steps into a transit tube and shoots up, passing floor after floor of automated offices, all absorbed in the completion of micro-objectives, fractions of bigger projects. The tube deposits her at the top. Thick windows look out across the cloudscape, making her shudder. For only she can appreciate the distortions in the skyline, deepening with agonizing slowness. She steps into a grand office, enjoying the surprise of everyone around the virtue table. "What is the meaning of this?" barks one, imperious. The journey to this point has given ample time for her to prepare an answer. Half-made speeches come to mind, full of explanations, demonstrations, and appeals. Now she is here, she finds she has neither the will nor the patience for any of it. Of the 12 people attending the meeting, 4 are physically present. She takes them first, filling their minds with her light, sacrificing some of her new minions' flexibility in exchange for loyalty, complete and unquestioning. 8 people disconnect from the meeting in horror, blinking out of view. In time they will return, sending assassins ahead of their armies, mobilizing everything they have against the new threat. For now, though, she has secured a victory. 4 heads bow as one, and Masasi sits with them, beginning to plan in earnest, sharing ideas that become actions, actions that spread outward, birthing an empire. Chapter 22. Maxie follows Tough Call to the meeting room. While her leader talks, her mind drifts elsewhere, wrestling with guilt, unfamiliar. Which is worse? Either way, it's a gamble, and I don't like the odds. Tough Call shakes her head. 1 dead, 3 others critical. You'd think the plague would be enough for these people. They enter the meeting room, both drifting to their habitual places. Maxie feels the urge to run, to fuck, or hit something, anything other than stand in a room doing nothing but feel bad. She begins to twist one of her rings repeatedly. Are you all right? Huh? She looks up, cringing under the scrutiny.
Don't worry about me, boss. I'm good.
Of course you're not. Tough Call reaches up, puts a hand on her shoulder. How's Sarah doing? Maxie shivers, relieved that her secret is safe, shocked how little her daughter's injury occupies her thoughts.
They kicked her around a lot, mostly little knocks. Grains is with her now. He says he doesn't think anything vital got speared by the knife.
She looks down.
Lost a lot of blood, though.
At least she's in good hands. We need her to pull through. Any more deaths and there'll be riots, speeches or no speeches. There is a companionable silence. Then Maxie adds,
I don't get it, boss. We're on their side. Why can't they see that?
Because they're shit scared. Tough Call takes her hand off Maxie's shoulder to gesticulate. You can't see a plague. You can't fight it. It kills folk no matter if they're good or bad, smart or dumb. It's unfair, plain and simple. People struggle with that. They're scared and angry and looking for answers. They see their own families getting sick and you and yours not even breaking a sweat. That isn't fair either. It's not your fault. It's the plague's. You're just easier to blame is all. Most people see that.
You really think so, boss? Feels like most people want us to go down, too.
Well, I don't. Verdigris needs you, Maxie. Always has, always will. Having said that, I can spare you for a few hours. Why don't you go see Sarah, or just get your head down for a bit? Tomorrow's going to be another long one. Maxie nods, trying to mask her relief as she rushes towards the door. We'll come through this, Tough Call adds, even if we have to knock some heads together. Maxie stops suddenly, twisting the ring so hard it rubs some skin off her finger.
Boss, I think maybe we've got another problem.
What's that? She only half turns back, looking at Tough Call from the corner of her eye.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, it might be nothing.
When is it ever nothing, eh? Come on, I can take it.
I heard that the first might have come over the wall.
What? When? Maxie takes a step backwards.
Maybe last night.
And you tell me now! Maxie mumbles an apology, but Tough Call is already on her feet. I want the council's asses around this table in the next 30 minutes, and bring the bearer too. Drag them here if you have to. No excuses! Tough Call looks at the faces around the table, all tired, nerves thin and ready to fray. Eze is attentive, almost eager. A bad sign. Max appears violent, Maxie distressed, and Dr. Grains keeps staring at her when he thinks she isn't looking. Only Cavane seems pleased, her usually immaculate nails black with fresh soil. On the other side of the table sits a girl, pale, and her harmonized shadow. Strangers still, and all the harder to predict because of it. And are these the people that will fix the city's problems? She suppresses the urge to laugh and gets started. So, here it is, sons help us. We got a plague that needs a cure, a people that need calming down, and now the first has infiltrated the city. She checks in with each of them, making a point of lingering on Maxie a moment longer than the rest. Any other problems anyone's heard about? The assembled shake their heads. Good. Cavane, how are our crop pods? There are, as you're aware, long-term issues with the sustainability of the... She catches the look in Tough Call's eye, trails off. That is to say, they are functional again, bug-free, thanks to the bearer. Good. Grains, your only job until I say otherwise is to find a cure. You need anything, people or otherwise, it's yours. But, says Vesper, rubbing her eyes, what about me? I can cure them. I'm sure you could, but the first is here, and the longer you stay, the worse this is going to get. How soon can you leave? Duet looks up. As fast as you can open the gates. Do you need anything for your trip? Already packed. In that case, we'd better open some gates for you. A large crowd escorts Vesper to the gates. Some go out of awe, wishing to show respect for the Seven and their servants. Most just wish to enjoy the spectacle. The first follows, blending easily among the bodies. Only the sword,
The Malice seems bothered by the infernal's proximity, tracking it through a narrowed lid, unblinking. The first feels the hate directed against it, but, while distracting, the emotion is sheathed, muted, unable to truly harm. Most concerning is the way several of the humans move together, united in their love for the girl, their essences marked with echoes of the Malice's song. The first resolves to return to the city and stamp out such seeds before they can take root. At Tough Call's signal, the great southern gates open and the girl stops to wave to the assembled, smiling at them until her companion takes her arm and guides her out. The first weaves forward, casual, insinuating itself towards the front of the group. Well-wishers continue to shout until the travellers are well clear of the city's border. The first watches the gates begin to close, preparing to move. It judges the distance carefully so that it will pass through just before they bang together. Even if pursued, it will be able to finish the bearer and her withering protector long before any help could come. It steps clear of the crowd, moving with inhuman speed, legs suddenly blurring, propelling forward. With a snap, the first's scarf pulls tight, held horizontal between its neck and Maxie's green fist locked tight around the other end. Forward motion is arrested, the body moving backwards, the feet forwards. But the first is not stunned by pain. It stops, heels balancing at an impossible angle, then spins, grabbing the scarf and hauling Maxie towards it. The usurperkin is unused to being pulled around, especially by those half her size. Any surprise is quickly supplanted by pain as the first catches her hands, bending back her fingers far further than nature intended. Free again, the first turns back to the gates, sprinting to make it through what remains of the gap between them. Too late, it feels the mood around it, sees the weapons appearing in the hands of the crowd, silvered guns and winged launchers. Normally it would have detected the trap, reading the mortals as if they were signposts, but the Malice has distracted it. It tries to call out, to soul-reach across the spaces and warn itself that the Malice is escaping, but bullets sing, stinging its shell and scrambling thought. Weapons fire, repeatedly, far more than is necessary. A fragment of the first falls, and 3 times the weapons fire again, just to be sure. Vesper and Duet leave Verdigris and the mountains behind them, packs full to bursting. Before them spread the blasted lands, open, barren save for a scattering of hardy shoots sprouting in tufts from the dry earth. The kid dances between them, teeth whipping down, beheading. Bright colours contrast with Vesper's faded coat, mementos given in gratitude. 8 bracelets, homespun, line up along her right forearm. New socks cushion her feet. Her hands still tingle from grateful squeezes, and her ears ring with kind words. A wind blows unbroken across the landscape, blocking the view with dusty ribbons. A visor is pulled down, a scarf pulled up. The kid begins to cough. Soon it passes by. No fresh gusts come, leaving air to settle and feet to fall into the steady rhythm of travel. "Duet," says Vesper, breaking the day's silence. "What do you think about Tough Call?" "What do you mean?" "I mean about what she did." "She did a lot of things." They walk on, except for the kid, who sees a juicy stalk waving slowly. His head moves in time, mouth watering. "Well, you know how she got everyone to work together, even though some of them wanted to kill each other?" "Yes."
And how she turned them all on the first? Yes. That. Unable to take it any longer, the kid bites at the stalk. Teeth normally suited to the task fail to cut through. The kid pulls, but the stalk remains rooted. New tendrils poke out from the cracks, feeling their way. One loops around the kid's ear, another around his front leg. I think it was good leadership. But she lied. She said that the Seven wanted humans and half-breeds to work together and that the Infernals were the true enemy. But they didn't say that. The sword doesn't like the half-breeds. It grumbles when the Usurperkin get close. Duet scowls beneath her visor. Why didn't you say something? I thought about it, but it all happened so fast. And to be honest, I was scared of her. But even if I had, nothing good would have come of it. It is a crime to lie in the presence of the Seven. That's what I thought. But what if lying is the only way to make things work? What then? I don't know. I'm only a soldier. But when people disrespect the Seven, they always come to a bad end. A strangled bleat distracts them. The kid struggles heroically, hooves digging new trenches in the ground, muscles straining. The stalk pulls back, trying to squeeze its prey through a crack 3 sizes too small. Vesper looks imploringly at Duet. Fine, she mutters, jogging over and cutting the kid loose. Resistance vanishes, and the kid tumbles backwards, coming to rest on his back. In his teeth is a chunk of stalk, thick, still alive. It squeaks alarmingly as the kid begins to chew. Having stopped, they rush down some food of their own. I think, continues Vesper, as if the conversation had never ended, that the Seven don't care what we do or say. Careful. If they did, then the sword would have done something when I've told a lie, wouldn't it? And why haven't the other 6 come south with us? It's not our place to question. Why haven't they stopped the first already? Why did they let Sonorous fall? Why did they let all those people die? Duet puts away her rations and gets up. I don't want anything to do with this. Vesper shouts after her. Why? Nothing is going to happen! Backing away to a safe distance, Duet kneels. The kid edges back also, the chewing temporarily paused. With horrible certainty, Vesper looks down to the sword resting against her pack. An eye is open, staring at her, full of fury, of power, raw and devastating. Duet drops her head, lips repeating the litany of the Seven. The kid takes another step back. Vesper swallows, but something in her rises to the challenge. Perhaps courage, perhaps a stubbornness. She meets its gaze, weathers the wave of emotion that suddenly hits her. She sees deep anger within the eye, unquenchable and potent, eclipsing her own emotions as surely as the suns eclipse a candle. But she sees other things too, buried deeper. On impulse, she touches the silvered wings, then takes the tip of one between finger and thumb. Tears come, though she is not sure from where. Being so close to the sword, she feels many things, keen enough to cut, to change, all woven together in a tangled ball. But she does not feel afraid. Days of travel blend together. Vesper is unusually quiet, and, to her surprise, Duet finds that she misses the sound of background chatter. Anything is preferable to the sound of the kid torturing his tainted plant, rolling it around his mouth as it shrieks. The kid, however, enjoys the challenge, wearing his opponent down slowly,
a war of attrition with a certain outcome. Dust and grit blow in bursts, shrouding the travellers, shrinking their world. Little bits of dirt worm their way into everything, in the waistbands of trousers, under nails, behind collars. Wherever they get past protective clothing, skin is rubbed, itched, irritated, and even the tiniest grain leaves a lingering taste in the mouth. As suddenly as they arrive, the dust clouds go, ripped away by the wind like a curtain, revealing the horizon once more. It is no longer empty. Sun's light glints off something distant, something moving. Duet wipes her visor clean, double checks. After a few moments, she sees it again. "Give me the scope." Vesper complies. But another wave of dust comes before she can verify whatever it is up ahead. Frustrated, they travel on. Like the other dust clouds, this too passes, and Duet is quick to raise the scope again. I see two of them, both adult. One of them looks armed, the other likely is too. They've got a dog with them. Do you think they've seen us? Hard to say. Can we sneak round them? No, there's nothing to hide behind. We could take a wide berth around them. They might just ignore us. Okay, let's do that. They strike out, leaving what passes as a path. Neither of them is surprised when the other group peel off to intercept them. Duet stops, gesturing for Vesper to do the same. She hands back the scope and takes off her pack, checking the fastenings on her armour, preparing herself. Vesper stares through the scope, squinting against the elements. The more the girl sees, the more confusion takes hold of her face. The kid waits with them and chews. Duet draws her sword. They all appear wild, each dangerous in their own way. The man is painfully thin, his face haggard with fatigue, but Duet notes he keeps one hand low, concealing something. The warrior appears like something out of a nightmare, his armour a patchwork of plate scavenged from dead seraph knights and hammered together in awful mockery. The dog's fur is patchy, its body riddled with old scars, a fighting dog. The mismatched eyes are more disturbing, though. One canine, one human, a sure sign of infernal tampering. Duet remembers her briefings, recognizes that this is a dog spawn, and that means a handler is close by. Perhaps the one in armour, perhaps another, lying low in the dirt. She looks round, but does not keep her eyes off the other warrior for long. His sword is drawn, a simple chunk of pointed metal, dead and without song. She notes he moves with a slight limp, a weakness to be exploited. The other group stop less than 15 meters away. Duet faces off the warrior. Vesper stands opposite the thin man, and the kid tries to avoid the curious stare of the dog spawn. Restless but not fully awake, the sword twitches. Vesper takes a step forward, and the dog spawn growls softly. "Hello," she says. The warrior's voice sounds dry, as if his throat belonged to a much older person.
"You have the malice?"
"Yes."
"I need it."
"You can't have it," replies Duet. "Why do you need it?" asks Vesper.
"To stop the yearning."
"What's that?"
"I don't know. I have seen many things come from the breach, but this is different. Bigger. I can't fight it. The strongest infernals of the fallen palace cannot fight it. I think only the Malice can stand against it. Give it to me.
Duet assumes a battle stance. We'd die before handing anything over to an infernal. The man speaks up at that.
You're wrong. He's a knight of the Seraph.
A harsh laugh escapes Duet's lips. Save your lies. Knights don't travel with demon dogs. Knights kill them. She raises her blade. And so do I. With some reluctance, the warrior readies himself too. Vesper shakes her head.
Hold on. You want to take the sword, the Malice, to the breach, right? We want that too. There's no need to fight.
There isn't? Asks the man. There isn't, mutters Duet.
No, there isn't. Maybe there's another way.
There is a long pause. The man looks at his armoured companion, then speaks for him.
We could help you, and in return you could help us.
We don't need your help, says Duet, and we don't trust you, your demon knight, or your pet. You're not fit to travel in the presence of the Seven. Vesper glares at her, and an eye at her shoulder flashes open.
That's enough! We're not going to fight each other. We're not, okay?
She takes a breath to calm herself.
Let's put our weapons away and find a place to rest and eat. We can spare you some of our rations, and we can talk. My uncle says it's easier to agree on things on a full stomach. What do you say? You look starving.
I don't need to eat, says the warrior.
Actually, says Vesper, looking past him to the other man, I wasn't talking about you. Chapter 23. Jem sits as close to the fire as he can. The hostile woman stays further back, sacrificing warmth for safety, her sword unsheathed over crossed legs. Samael also keeps his distance, uncomfortable in the unexpected social setting. They shelter in a cave tucked behind some rocks. It looks to have sheltered many travellers over the years, some of whom have left mementos. A few bits of litter, a plastic sleeping mat, and doodles scratched into the stone. The girl passes around some food, ignoring her companion's expression of disgust. Harder to ignore is the sword, leaning against the natural wall, and the way it glares at Scout when he gets too close.
My name is Vesper, says the girl, and this is Duet. I'm Jem, and behind me is Sir Samael. The one chasing your goat is called Scout.
They watch the two animals running circuits around the edge of the cave.
Don't worry, he adds. He's just playing. I didn't know Dogspawn could play. Neither did I.
Vesper passes a piece of dried fruit to Jem, and he gasps when he grabs both of her hands.
You're so warm, he explains, beaming. And you're freezing. I know. I've been cold for so long I'd almost forgotten.
He trails off, smile fading. Vesper looks at her hands, still held tight in his. A blush creeps onto her cheeks.
You can borrow my blanket if you want.
Hands part, and he nods, eating the fruit slowly, savouring its sweetness. After a while, his eyes flicker over the sword before settling on her coat. He begins to frown.
Where did you say you were from? I feel like I know you from somewhere. I grew up outside the shining city, but I was born in a village south of here. I don't remember it, though. I was too young. It got destroyed in the invasion.
Jem reaches past Vesper to pick another piece of fruit from the open bag.
Tell me more about the shining city. There's not much to say. She shrugs. I'm not allowed to go there. What about you? I was born in Horizon. Grew up in New Horizon. What's it like? It's bad. The demon in charge is called the Demagogue, and it doesn't care much for humans. We're mainly used as entertainment, or slaves, or food.
Vesper shudders.
That's terrible. That's nothing. If I told you half of what happens in the city, you'd die of nightmares. And the worst of it is, nothing's going to change. The Empire of the Winged Eye and its knights and all of its soldiers abandoned us. Even the Seven. There's no hope anymore. That's why I told Sir Samael we shouldn't go back.
Duet mutters angrily to herself, but the words are easily heard.
Not a knight, not fit to speak of the Seven. We shouldn't stand for it.
Jem's thin frame begins to shake.
Why? Why am I not fit?
Because you're tainted, that's why. I can see it in your teeth.
His jaw drops